Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 250. That's 250. It's almost Christmas. It's wintertime in Columbus, Ohio. It's cold, not too bad in the garage, but we want to thank everyone for joining us. We've got some special guests tonight, a returning guest and a first-time guest, which we're excited about, and we'll bring them on just momentarily. Before I do that, do a couple of the business things here. I want to thank our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. We've got a cigar tonight, the Asylum 13 Medulla Maduro. That's going to be thanks to Tinderbox at Easton. That's available there along with other Asylum 13 cigars, along with their sister company, CLE Cigars. A lot of selection there. So check them out for sure. If you're in the Columbus area, if you don't have a local brick and mortar, be sure to check them out. Get a hold of them. They will be happy to ship to you if you want to shop local-ish, if you don't have a local brick and mortar. Also want to thank Altadis USA for the continued support. We've got a Reserva Real, Romeo y Julieta for the second cigar of the night. So thank you, Altadis USA, for the continued support. Constantly, and Josh Bentley for that as well. BS Cigar Company, the gold and silver are available. New shipments are arriving at the Tinderbox at Easton, who carry the BS gold and silver. They'll be arriving at the end of this month, hopefully the next week, and then in January from the silver from Espinosa. Placencia makes the gold, and Espinosa makes the silver. Thank you guys at patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast for the continued support, and also for the one-time contributions from several of you at Venmo, at Bourbon and BS through Venmo. So check that out as well. And then if you guys, I know it's too late for the holidays, but buyjack.com/Bourbon and BS for the shirts. I've got a BS 3/4 sleeve. We're sporting some Asylum gear tonight for our guests, but check it out, buyjack.com/Bourbon and BS for the podcast shirts, BS Cigar Company, apparel, and swag. Thanks, guys. And a reminder to please drink responsibly as well. So we don't want anyone getting in trouble, especially this time of the year around the holidays. And without further ado, we're going to bring on our special guest and
Wait, which one's special?
You know which one's special. And Nook. Oh, there it is. All right.
Our special guest and Nook.
We got Tom Lazuka, owner of Asylum 13 Cigars, and Nook Mercer, who's been on the show several times. He is, what's your territory again?
Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, and Western Pennsylvania.
It's a good territory.
Mm-hmm.
And you rep for Asylum 13, and it is. I've seen.
Well, the whole company, Tabacaleros Unidas. It's one blanket
parent company,
right? and I sling them all.
Well, and first and foremost, Tom, I'll ask you. I've seen it, and I'm sure it's just like social media. Asylum Cigars is the official title. Is it Asylum 13 Cigars? Right?
No.
Asylum Cigars.
Asylum Cigar Company. 13 is just one of the lines of cigars.
Well, shit.
Look at that. We learn something new every day.
I did.
Steve should know better by now.
Yeah.
Well, all right. No, so here's the thing is when I tagged Asylum Cigars
The handle
on Instagram, the handle is Asylum 13.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it could be. It just the company name is Asylum Cigar Company, but we're known for the 13 brand, right?
Correct.
Which we have
I got you.
5 or 6 different cigars that fall underneath that.
So my apologies for the posters and all that stuff. Whatever.
Oh, no apology needed.
They know
no apology needed. Exactly.
They know who you are. So, Tom, welcome to the show. Nook, welcome back. Happy to have you. We're smoking the Asylum 13. Right, it is an Asylum 13 because it's on the band.
It is
Medulla Maduro. We're smoking here in the garage the 6. You guys say it's 60 by 6, right?
Yeah. We do it backwards, I guess. But
that's fine. No, I just want to make sure I'm getting it right. So when they're looking it up, it's 60 by 6 is what that size is for you guys, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is the Medulla Maduro. I've always loved the packaging on it. I know Nate took a picture of it. You've got typically that tissue paper on there, which is something you guys started not too terribly long ago, right?
No, yeah, correct. Christian really hated the look of the cellophane. It just glares too much in the humidor and things like that. So we switched to tissue on almost everything.
It's such a good look, and it stands out. It does the protection, obviously. for the foot band and everything else. I love that. But Tom, if you would, I mean, kind of walk us through this project. What are we smoking here? We'll dive right into the cigar since we have you, and we appreciate, like I said, having you join us. But so the Asylum 13 Medulla Maduro.
So with this cigar, we have 4-year aged authentic Corojo in the binder and filler. A mix of Viso, Seco, and Ligero. And then we use a San Andreas Maduro wrapper on the cigar. So it's a medium plus, but I don't think it's not too strong or anything. It's got a smooth finish to it, a little sweetness, obviously, with the Maduro wrapper.
Yeah.
Where's that Corojo coming from?
Honduras, our farm in Honduras. Yeah.
So this is all like obviously the Corojo is grown by the company, correct?
Correct. By Christian's family, his father and himself at the Corojo farm. Or it used to be the Camacho farm, and then when they sold it, now it's the oh dude.
We lost you.
Yeah.
Come on, bro.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good.
My assistant here put his ear pods on and it tried to connect to my phone.
Love it.
Oh, glad we're not the only ones that have technical issues.
Yeah.
It happens all the time, man. So yeah, you said it was obviously the Aroa Farms there, and the wrapper leaf, is that something, I don't know if you guys disclose that or not, is that something grown by you guys? Is that sourced?
Usually it's sourced. We have experimented with some San Andreas wrapper that we grow in Honduras.
Yeah.
And we have put that on our cigars, but this is a San Andreas from Mexico.
I got you. Nice.
What is the difference between the Medulla Maduro that we're smoking and then the original Medulla and Oblongata blend?
Yeah, the only real difference, again, the binder and fillers are the same. The only difference is the wrapper on that cigar is our authentic Corojo wrapper from Honduras.
Because you guys came out with that one first, and the round one's the Medulla, the Oblongata's the box press.
Yes.
And then how long after that did you come out with the Maduro?
I think a year. I don't even remember, actually, but I think it was just the following year we launched the Maduro.
Yes.
One of the things I think is interesting is the boxes that they come in, or at least that the tinderbox that Easton has gotten, is you have, I think it's 25 Medulla, the round, and then 25 Oblongata, the box press, in the same box.
Correct. And
what was the reasoning behind doing both in one box?
It was for people to try them both and see what they like. A lot of people, depending on the shop, some people sell the Oblongata better. Some people sell the traditional round Vitola better in the Medulla. But it's really an opportunity for you guys to have someone try one of each and see if their palate tastes the difference between the two cigars, So
and I think Nook was actually at, I think it was may have been the 10 event.
I was going to bring that up because when we were setting up, Brian and I had a bet.
Brian's the owner of the tinderbox at Easton, Columbus, Ohio, for those that don't know.
And he's like, listen, Nook, he's like, my guys like round. That's the one they're going to take. I think that was Tom's first year at the 10 event when we did Medulla. I think we did Maduro at that one. But anyways, we had them all laid out and the VIPs went through and we were giving away box press like crazy. Brian came over, did a check-in. He's like, so am I right? I'm like, dude, it's 8-1 right now, bro. They're taking the box press, but when you guys placed orders, you order round. But usually at one of those type of events, people see a box press and being in the retail side for so long, box press means it costs more. Tom and I are telling these guys it's the exact same cigar, but they're taking the box press.
Yeah.
And it's the same price, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is.
It's it's the same thing. But then at the end, the last half an hour of the event, all we had was round left. So that's what everybody got. So it was just funny to see that.
So that was the whole project, right? So why did you guys do that? I'll ask this. I know it's been out for a while, Tom. You may not have answered these questions for a while, so sorry to be late to the game. We've been trying to get Tom on the podcast. he has always said he wants to be in the garage. Finally, it was like, all right, travel plans and everything going on. Let's get him on the podcast, even though it is remote. We still want to have you in the garage. But with this project, is it just that, like, what was a fun name, or what's going on with Medulla Oblongata? Is it a playoff with others?
Yeah, it's always, we like to have fun with the Asylum names, and it's obviously a play off the Waterboy. And,
right.
And that, so, and obviously the Asylum name, we get to play a little bit with that stuff. So it was just a fun name to do. And Christian came up with that one. He was like, we had to call it the Medulla Oblongata. So we went with it, and it's worked. I mean, the cigar does very well for us.
I think it's very clever. I also had a question about the Asylum 13 Medulla, or the Medulla Oblongata, both the Corojo and then also the Maduro. There was a point, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the Asylum stuff was not made in Honduras, correct?
Correct. Yeah, when we started with 3 lines. That was the original Asylum 13 Nicaragua. We had the Asylum Premium, and then the Schizo Natural were our first 3 lines, and they all came out of Nicaragua.
And then was this the first project that you brought some of the Honduran Corojo into and making it in Honduras, or no?
No, I think the first project that we did with this was the
13 Corojo.
The 13 Corojo, and then we did Connecticut, and then we did the Medulla Oblongata.
So you're branching off the original core line there.
Yeah.
I got you.
And then the Ogre was really the third one. So we, but we also did Ogre out of Nicaragua. So
right. And you guys, so if you guys are, you're probably familiar with Tom and Asylum Cigars, but you guys are known for what exactly?
Yeah,
among other things, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Like you start a company and you're trying to build a company as a brand, right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't think companies start off. You can call it a brand, but it's not really a brand till it gets recognized as something, So it's kind of like our gift and our kiss of death with Asylum, because we're very well known for big ring gauge cigars. We started out with the 70s, and then we did the 80s, and now we have the 90 by 9, and so. People think of Asylum, as a brand. They think of us as a large ring gauge company, but we do everything. I still have people who, like, when are you going to make a Robusto? It's like, we've made it for 10 and a half years,
right?
So we got 50s, 60s, Toros, Lanceros. We make quite a few sizes, but people tend to think of us as the big ring gauge cigar company, which I'm okay with.
Yeah, I've been in the retail side of things for about 10 and a half years. And when I think of the big ring gauges that are out there, like, to me, I don't know if you guys were the first ones, but that's what I always think of is Asylum being really the first one to do the big ring gauges and make it popular.
Yeah, we weren't the first. I mean, there were a couple people. Obviously, Perdomo tried it with the Menso many, many years ago.
They were before you?
Yeah, the original Amenso,
okay.
Not the current version, but
it was like 2000.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, and again, a little bit before its time. And when we came into the market, there were really 2 companies, JFR and Gran Habanos. Both had a 70.
Right,
and that was a big reason I did it. Is that I was traveling around the country, I would see empty boxes, and they would say, we just can't get them. So a big part of, making the brand was fitting a niche that we didn't have. And then, people ask, okay, did you blend your masterpiece type cigar? And I think the first step I take in blending, and when I sit down with Christian and we're at the factory, is how many cigars do we want to make? Because that's going to dictate what tobaccos we use, because I have to be able to supply the tobacco. And I've seen too many times where a cigar comes out, it takes off, and then they can't get the same tobacco, the same quality tobacco, so the blend changes. So I really always sit down and say, okay, how many cigars can I make? And only bring me the binder, wrapper, and filler that we can make 1 million cigars with. So that's what we did the first time when we were blending the Asylum 13 in Nicaragua. And So we make the best cigar we could out of the tobaccos that we could supply it with.
I got you. Is that typically your benchmark? Is around 1 million cigars as far as like a forecast of you want to have enough tobacco? Because we've heard from other blenders on the show before, and they all had like in their mind to do a major release, like a regular release cigar, not a limited production or anything like that. But it's is it 1 million and kind of, or roughly 1 million? Like, we want to have enough tobacco, so if this does do well, we've got at least a couple years here before we need to, get more.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at Asylum, that was our goal, right? I mean, when me and Christian started the company, our goal was 600,000 cigars the first 6 months, or for the first year, pardon me.
Okay.
So we figured, okay, we'll do 300,000 cigars in the first 6 months. And that was with the 3 Asylum lines and the 3 CLE lines, the Connecticut, the Habano, and the Corojo. Because originally it was just going to be me and Christian. We weren't going to hire a sales team. We were going to keep it kind of small. We brought Nook in to work with us from the beginning. But we weren't really going to hire a national, a full team around the country. And, sorry, slip and fall.
Pergola.
But we got to that first trade show a month into it. We opened on July 2nd of 2012. Oh. And that first trade show was like the first week of August. And we were just getting hammered. And Christian looked at me and says, listen, go out and hire a full sales team. We're onto something. And I think we ended up doing in the first 6 months just under 800,000 cigars the first 6 months. So
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So, we were over the million mark the second year in just the Asylum 13. So it really took off very quickly for us, and it continues to grow. It's been a great brand for us.
It sounds like it. And then with this cigar, I mean, this focus a little bit on this. Like, Nate, what are you thinking about? Have you smoked this plenty of times, correct?
I have.
Yeah.
So it's weird. When it comes to the Robusto and the Toro, I prefer the round over the box press.
Okay.
When it comes to the 60 ring, I actually prefer the box press because it's more of a rectangular, like flatter box press. And for me, it just fits more comfortably.
So you like the box press?
I like the box press in the 60 more.
It's funny how that box press, especially with your packaging, Tom, that it almost makes it look higher end. It really does.
Yeah.
I mean, not that this looks bad, but when you have the two next to each other, it's like,
and there's no gaps, there's no shadows.
It's like the wrapper looks smoother and everything else. It's just
the box pressing really does. It stretches that wrapper a little bit and makes it look really clean. I mean, it just looks really tasty. You know what I mean? So it does. It makes it look good, and I think the combination of colors on the band, the kind of chocolate brown with that gold, really looks amazing on the shelf.
Absolutely.
Well, the thing that also intrigued me about the box press was on the top part of the cigar, like as it's laying in the box, the top of it where you can read the band and the name of the cigar. The corners on that are very, very solid, like straight 90-degree corners.
Yeah.
Hard box press. But then on the other side of the cigar, it's rounded off on the edges. Mm-hmm. So it and the way you turn it and the way it fits in the mouth, that's why I like the box press more in that bigger ring gauge. And when the tinderbox had both the original with the Corojo wrapper and the Maduro, like I kept going back and forth. It depended on what kind of mood I was in, which one I was going to smoke. Because I love your guys' Corojo tobacco. And so there'd be times where it's like, you know what? I want a medium-bodied cigar. So I'd smoke the original, and then the next cigar would be the Maduro. And just, step it up from there. Or, instead of going the other way around. But, yeah, I'd smoke them, like, back-to-back or in the same day sometimes. Just because I love that Corojo, but then also see where the difference in that wrapper really comes from and what different notes you get from it. Even though everything else about the cigar is the same.
And for those that are just tuning in, because we do get some people that, tune in a little bit, as we go on, they get the notice. One more time, Tom, if you could break down the Asylum 13 Medulla Maduro blend there.
Yeah, so what we're smoking tonight, again, is the Asylum 13 Oblongata. Or no, we're smoking the Medulla, pardon me. And it's the Maduro, which is a San Andreas Maduro wrapper. with the authentic Corojo binder and filler, where it's 4-year age binder and filler, so it's very smooth, and it's a mix of Ligero, Viso, and Seco in it.
Okay.
Getting the whole plant.
Yeah.
I always like the Asylums when I smoke them, CLE as well. But I mean, the Asylums, you guys with the bigger cigars. I'm not a 70 ring gauge, 80 and now a 90. I've not seen the 90. I don't know if I want to see the 90.
You want to see it, Steve?
The 90, I remember the video Christian did. The 90 weighs the same as two 770s.
My point is that
exactly
the construction is what always amazes me, because when it gets to the bigger ring gauges, think you run into some, and you probably have a comment to this, but you run into issues of making sure it's combustible, making sure that it's not overpacked with the filler, because I've found over the years that once you hit that 60 ring gauge, at that point, I've had plenty that, depending on the wrapper leaf and the construction, there's a lot of chances that you're going to have some issues, whether it's either it's overfilled in a sense. There's just so much tobacco that it either gets plugged, it's too airy, the wrapper is breaking because the binder can't hold it. It's just, I think the bigger you get, do you find any issues there? More than just traditional sizes?
No, we have not had that issue. I mean, our factory has been really amazing in Honduras and Nicaragua at making sure the quality and construction is very, very good. We always get the argument that there's cheap fillers in there, and that's why the cigar's its price and that. But that's just not the case. We use quality binder and filler, and one thing we did, we don't try and cut corners, because on a big cigar, I tend to see more people underfilling their 70 ring gauge than overfilling.
Right.
Because again, the cost, and so I don't know if we were trying to save a few bucks or whatever, but we've weighed every 70 on the market, and most of them are 20 to 30% less weight.
That's amazing.
So, there's less fill, and that was quite a few years ago, and maybe that's changed. We haven't checked that in a while, but,
sure.
A lot of the cigars were filled just less. I mean, they didn't weigh the same, and we never cut corners like that, and I think that's what kept our construction very good, is that there's the proper amount of tobacco in it, and there's 9 filler leaves in a 770.
That's incredible.
So and I don't even know how many are in the 90. The 80 by 8 is like 11 or 12 filler leaves, and so
we're at 15 at this point.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of tobacco, and like I said, I'm no roller. I spend time down there, but the reality is they've done a fantastic job of creating a good quality and construction in our cigars for 10 plus years now.
Well, and I would speculate one of the reasons why you guys can keep the cost on cigars this size down compared to some others is because they're so vertically integrated.
Good, you almost had that.
Yeah, vertically integrated. There we go. No, so it's all, so the filler binder's all their Corojo, so they're growing all that. The only thing they're getting on this one is that wrapper leaf. But then on the original, that was Corojo, so everything's coming from their farm. They're not having to source any of the tobacco, so that right there helps keep costs down. Because we've seen, especially in the whiskey world, like once that companies are distilling themselves, tends to keep the price down a little bit.
Sure.
Versus it when they're sourcing it, that's another expense that gets added to the cost of the consumer.
Well, yeah, when you get to a certain level, right, volume and everything, and you guys have your own box factory, you have, you guys source your bands though, correct?
Yeah.
But everything else, like boxes, pretty much are all in-house, right? And I know Nook, you've been on before. If you could, Nook, you've explained it before on there, and I know people like Jonathan Herring they're excited for some reason to hear from you. So I don't want to, just have you be a pretty face on the bottom of the screen here.
I've been on here before many times.
You have.
This is, Tom's time to shine.
No, but
down there in the.
I wanted to put to you the
Yeah.
impressive part, because if people don't know this, I always like to highlight it when you guys are on, is the level of that, like, you guys are certified as a factory and an operation, if I'm not mistaken, as far as, being completely green, clean, everything else. If you could kind of explain that to the
Yeah,
audience.
that's like what I like to talk about, like when I come into the shop and everything. And,
Yeah.
especially now with, Christian putting a lot into the infrastructure down in Honduras with the new box factory. And that's going to help out a lot. Like, and he's done, because you've been to like the company dinners before,
Yeah.
you cut down a tree, put back up a tree. It's zero, like that's the big thing that we do. It's like zero impact on the environment, and that's that's really big for us.
But don't you guys have like a level of, like, is it certified, or is it just, you said it's like equivalent to the certification of
Well,
some
like-
of the other?
Well,
No,
the Bayer certification.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Bayer Crop Science, and what it means is you have to have zero impact on the environment.
Okay.
So whether how we irrigate our fields, any type of products we use to fumigate have to be non-toxic, obviously. The people in our factories, we have doctors on hand, all those things where they go into the homes of our employees and teach them hygiene, how to recycle. Obviously, hand washing stations everywhere. Our guys are required to get up every hour, wash their hands. So, it's a whole process. When you walk into our factory, you get fumigated, you walk through a misting system. It's just a process that we were doing. What was amazing is when COVID hit, the Honduran government actually used our factories as the model for Honduras, for all other factories. Because we basically, the only thing we had to do is separate the people and put masks on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, we are in great shape, and we're looking at being, I think in the next few months, we'll be at least 50% solar.
No shit. Wow.
Yeah. So we're moving the factories to solar power, which comes at a great time because the Honduran government, the only thing they ever provided was electricity. And now they're charging the charges for electricity. So we can manage our costs there. Yeah. So the timing's good. And, the projects, we've tried to really do these projects in Honduras with the reforestation. The real problem there is they just cut it all down. You know what I mean? You can't, you go. So Christian was just telling me last week, I was in Miami, and we're going to be able to do quite a bit of land in the United States. We're going to start reforesting some projects here in the U.S. now. So, yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
When you guys started all this, was it for like basically some benefit, like financially, or is this just something you guys, like Christian and you, wanted to really focus on, or is this something that he's always believed in the family, the Aroa family, or what?
Yeah, it was strictly Christian's a germaphobe and had nothing to do with government regulation or anything like that. So it honestly, like, it was just something Christian always, he'd been around the business a long time. His family's been in it for 100+ years, and you go into factories and they would seem dirty. There'd be shit on the floor, whatever. And so, you can eat off our floors. They're constantly being cleaned, mopped, swept. The presentation of our people is very nice. We make sure they're in a uniform, and so it was more something to just create a higher standard, than to be green or anything like that in the beginning. And at the end of the day, it's more expensive to do it that way because the products that we have to use are all edible. They're food grade, so it's more expensive to use those products. So it's always been more expensive to do it the way we do it. So it was never for cost savings.
Yeah, I imagine it's also, you have to import a lot of those products as well.
Yeah, we're very fortunate that literally Bayer has one of their crop science facilities like right by our farm in Danley.
All right.
So that's really how it started. They were very
Just walk
close.
down the road, grab your shit, and walk back.
Yeah, and it was amazing in the they come and they have sensors in the soil that would tell us everything we needed to know, like how much phosphorus, magnesium,
Wow.
the alkaline, everything we needed to know to really maximize it, to get the tobacco in the soil exactly where we need it to grow the best possible tobacco. So it's really been a great project for us.
That sounds
It's just cool. It's just cool to see. Like, I remember the first time that I went down, for a company trip. The cars are going through the gates at the fields. They're spraying the tires down, cleaning your feet off in every like one of the seed barns, or even just walking down the fields.
Yeah.
It's always cleaning. And then I remember walking in a field with Christian, and I just said the guys look like guys with Ghostbuster packs on their
Proton
back.
pack, what those are
Yeah,
called.
they're spraying, and this is before I even knew that it was like food grade and everything like that. I'm like,
You didn't
dude,
know
man,
what they were spraying you with, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and Christian's like, he's like, dude, Conyo, man, you're fine. You could drink that stuff if you wanted to. You're good.
I shouldn't.
So, yeah.
But,
Nook may have drank too much. That's why it stunted his growth. All I'm saying.
not true.
Well, dude, he had me drink it behind like one of the seed barns. It was a dare. It was either that or get the tattoo on my back. So
After dinner, they're
elected
doing
to
shots of it.
He might grow more. Who knows?
Yeah.
Could be something in it. The Asylum 13, Medulla Maduro. Where does this fall in your portfolio, Tom? As far as, I'm not going to say is it your favorite, but what is your typical go-to type of cigar? I know you have a vast, portfolio just under the Asylum cigar brand. Let alone you go into the CLE side and everything else. But as far as this, is this your typical go-to smoke, or is this something that you like a lighter cigar, a heavier cigar? Like where are you at on the scale on your go-to, I guess, everyday smoke?
No, this is right on it. You know what I mean? My everyday cigar is either the natural or the Maduro of this. You get asked the question, you do enough of these throughout the years and people ask you, well, if you were stranded on an island and only could smoke one cigar type shit, right? But it would be our authentic Corojo tobacco we grow.
Yeah.
Am I biased towards it? 100%. I've been working with Christian and his father for 19 years, and it's been a huge part of my growth and my knowledge into the business. So yeah, my everyday cigar is going to be an authentic Corojo cigar. So, the Medulla and the Oblongata and the natural and the Maduro, I'll mix that up. But I probably smoke at least 3 a day, of just these.
Of that line?
Yeah.
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 What's your go-to size?
I tend to be more around the 54, the Toro. I like Robustos are not a long enough smoke for me, like a 50.
Sure.
I like the flavor of the 50. I just like a 6-inch cigar, so I tend to be smoke the 54s in it as my everyday. And I don't. I'll smoke some bigger ring gauge stuff here and there, but I tend to be anywhere between, depending on our line, like the Aroa First 20s. It's the 46 by 6, my favorite size. But it's anywhere, and I don't like anything any smaller than that, really. So anywhere 46 to 54 is my kind of sweet spot.
That's your sweet spot.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm kind of the same way too.
I think that's getting to it, but obviously, again, your bread and butter originally is the 60 and up now. It's so interesting to see that with the Asylum name, but it's cool to see. And again, I think there's some comments on the feed here, where it's like, yeah, no, we make everything from what you just said up to now a 90 ring gauge on a blend. It's incredible. This cigar for me, I like it as well. Kind of in my sweet spot as far as I would call it like medium plus. This is not too full bodied in my opinion. I'm of the opinion that this has like a bit of, I don't want to say, it's almost got a little bit of that like black coffee for me, where it's not like a bitterness or anything like that, but it's got this really kind of a sharper,
dry bite on the finish.
Yeah.
Like oaky, dark chocolate, like a super dark chocolate black coffee.
I smoke around Nate long enough that he already knows what I'm going to say. Apparently, so.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
I mean,
pretty
I
much
think
what I was going to say. So yeah, I mean, thank you, Nate.
and I think you're right on, both of you guys. I mean, I think it is.
Get out of my head.
Yeah. You got what? You got the Neuralink in there or something
I don't know
already?
what's going on here, man. It's freaking me out, though. We're gonna go wider screen here. I'm gonna scoot over.
Yeah.
But no, I will say, I mean, it is like a clean finish. In the retro hail, it's not too peppery, but it's enough that it's there, in my opinion. So it is nice. It does add to it when you retro hail this cigar.
Yeah, it definitely, you get a little bit the natural, you get a little more of the earthiness and spice through the nose.
Yeah.
And on the Maduro, obviously, it's not like a straight sweet flavor, like you said. It's that combination of the Corojo and the San Andreas that give you that kind of edge, right? Like like I said, like a black coffee, like a dark coffee.
That's
very much so.
That's what I equate this to, is drinking a nice cup of like you said, like a dark roast black coffee. Not too strong, but it has just a ton of flavor. And again, it's for me, it's okay. A lot of times, if you describe it as, it kind of has a like that sharp, little like slight dry, slight bitter. But that's something that I think a lot of people like when it comes to a black coffee. When it comes to like a dark chocolate or whatever, you know what I mean? It's
like that dark chocolate covered espresso bean.
Yeah, I mean, it's got that kind of quality to it, which is, I think, something that I know I like when I drink coffee. I don't put any cream or anything in it. It's just drink it black. And that's why I think I probably gravitate towards this blend, is that, so if you guys are like those, like coffee drinkers or whatever, you haven't had this cigar, I would definitely encourage you to try the Medulla Maduro or the Oblongata if you want to try a box press. But yeah, I think it's just got a nice, almost a balance of that. It's not overly bitter. It's not, it doesn't have that burnt coffee taste. It just, that's for me, that's the overwhelming note that I'm getting from it. It reminds me of that.
It's not like the coffee that Tom drinks. He drinks that double. Got to load up on the cream and sugar in his coffee.
Hey, it depends. It depends on the morning. I went black this morning, man.
There you go.
I'm proud of you.
I'm versatile.
It's almost not burnt coffee, but almost like when that coffee pot starts getting towards the bottom of the pot and starts getting a little bit of the grounds in there.
It's
I like that
gas station pot that's been sitting there for 3 hours.
No. Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, it's not like the the McDonald's burnt shit that they intentionally
Starbucks.
went for. Oh God, I can't drink that stuff.
Starbucks is just awful.
I can't drink that.
It's amazing how they've done so much over these years. It's phenomenal. They actually, I think they brew it so that they can add all that shit to it, so you can still taste a little bit of coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
We usually we get the Tim Hortons right next to Tom's house every time we go on the road.
Yeah.
Got to swing through, get some breakfast sandwiches and some cafe action.
There you
Now,
go.
I will say, Nook, you're the only rep, and I appreciate this. Anytime that he's in town, almost every time, it's typically before noon, we have a Starbucks right behind the shop, and he just comes in with those egg bites, and they are delicious every time.
Absolutely.
He introduced me to those egg bites, and he's like, I got you some. Try this. And I was like, Jesus, this is amazing.
Now even Brian will eat them too. It's
now
every
Brian will
Wednesday,
even eat them. He's usually going to say, no, I don't want anything.
but every time I'm in Columbus, I'll be out there next Wednesday. And every Wednesday morning, my first stop, I go grab my coffee and 3 orders of egg bites to bring to the shop, like clockwork.
Like clockwork. Let's if you guys don't mind, we'll talk more about the cigars and everything else with Tom and Asylum and what you guys have gone through. But I do want to touch on we're drinking the 1792, not the 1792, 1792. We're drinking bottled and bond. Tom, you've got the small batch.
So do I.
Nook, you got the small batch now. Okay, is that on ice? Is that what I see?
Yeah.
Or no?
It's weird. The lighting in Bern and Pittsburgh is kind of weird. They keep giving me mood lighting, bringing it down. So I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like you're drinking limoncello.
It does.
It looks really light.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, actually, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Oh, they just messed with the lights again. I don't know if it's going to be turning into.
So that
the
is just neat.
soon.
It's not, Bern pours a legit pour, so that's just.
Well, that's what I get for Let's consult the menu of how much this cost me. I'm
All
going to
right.
put it on my expenses anyway. So
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
Yep.
Just don't charge the podcast, please. It's not going to go through.
as
Nate,
as
decline.
Jonathan Herring said in the chat, give
yeah.
a shout out to Jonathan. He's like, because I've been texting in the chat, and he's like, well, you're at Burn. That means those drinks are going to cost you like $30, $40
You pay
a
for the
drink. So
ambiance.
I guess so.
Yeah. If you could, Nate, you give a little bit on 1792. Again, we're drinking the bottled and bond. Obviously, that means it's 100 proof. Small batch, not so much. Not quite there, I think. It's
93.7.
Okay. So 1792, if you give us a little rundown here.
Yeah, 1792. The distillery opened up in 1879 as the 1792 distillery. It's one of the oldest, like fully operational distilleries in Kentucky. It's in Bardstown. The 1792 name actually started out, it was called Ridgewood Reserve 1792, and it came out in 2002. And then in 2004, they got sued by Brown Forman, who owns the rights to Woodford Reserve, because they thought Ridgewood Reserve and Woodford Reserve would be too confusing.
Get out of here.
They thought it'd be too confusing, so they filed a lawsuit against 1792, and a federal judge sided with them. So they
had more lawyer.
Yeah, so they had more money. So they changed it to 1792 Ridgemont Reserve, and then eventually they just went to 1792 in 2004.
Okay.
And then in 2009, the distillery was actually purchased by Sazerac.
Mm-hmm.
So Buffalo Trace, this is a Sazerac or Buffalo Trace product now, but it's still coming out of that distillery in Bardstown. Recently, as of June of this year, they announced that they will no longer be doing tours. After COVID and everything, they're not even doing tours and tastings anymore.
They had a problem too with that the Rick House too.
June of 2018.
Yeah.
So 4 months after Steve and Jake started the podcast, half the Rick House collapsed, and then 2 weeks later, the other half of it collapsed.
Right into the river too.
Yeah, it went into 2 creeks, killed over 1,000 fish.
All right. We don't have to.
But they were actually
getting body count here.
They were actually getting fined $25,000 a day until it was all cleaned up. Yeah. But they lost about 9,000 barrels of whiskey.
It's incredible.
They were going to try and salvage some of them. And I remember back then we joked, like, hey, just wait in like 4 to 6 years or something. You're going to see like the 1792 Survivor Series or something.
Yeah.
But they've got 29 Rick Houses.
Wow.
So they make a lot of stuff out of there. But 1792 is, in their mind, like that's the premium that's coming out of that distillery.
Okay. Bottle and Bond, obviously that's from the Bottle and Bond Act, and 100. We've talked about it on the podcast before. It has to be 100 proof. It's got to come from the same half of the year as far as the product.
Same distillate season. Yep.
And 4 years.
Yeah, minimum 4 years.
Minimum 4 years.
In a government bonded warehouse.
Yeah. So.
And this was actually a gift from someone on the community page, but it was so long ago that they gave us this. I can't remember who it was that gave us this bottle, and it was a half bottle anyway.
That's terrible.
But yeah, they came in the shop. I think it was
it John Howard?
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
I asked him. It wasn't him. But yeah, someone came in the shop when I was working and Steve wasn't, and dropped off this half bottle for us to do on a podcast. So we finally got around to it.
So Nate, it's 4 years in the government warehouse.
It has to be a minimum of 4 years.
Yeah.
So in order for it to,
I always thought bottled and bond was like 1 year minimum.
No. So in order for it to be bourbon, it's got to be at least 2 years. In order for it to be a bonded bourbon, it has to be at least 4 years. It has to be bottled at 100 proof, no higher, no less. Same distiller and same distillate season. So the barrels that go into this either have to be from January through June or July through December. They can't So you can't mix a June barrel and a July barrel.
Yeah,
it has to be at least 4 years.
I got the years wrong in the government warehouse.
Yeah.
So
it has to be at least 4. But obviously there are some that do more than 4. Recently we had the Heaven Hill bottled and bond. That's a 7-year.
Yeah.
Henry McKenna is a 10-year bonded. So
do you know what one of my favorite, and Steve and I have talked about this before, Evan Williams bottled and bond. What is that? That's
a 4.
Biggest bang for your buck right there. That stuff is so cheap.
It is. There's a lot out there. I mean, and I don't know what the MSRP of this is in Ohio. Did you look that up?
Well, it's not available in Ohio. But if it was, according to OHLQ's website, it's $51.99.
So yeah.
But it's not in Ohio.
I wonder if this is a lottery bottle for them.
I think it is a lottery bottle. So obviously they have the small batch, which is available in Ohio. That's somewhere in the $30-some price point. But then they also do a sweet wheat. They do a 12-year. They do a full proof. They do some smaller, one-off type bottles. Most of those are not available in Ohio, except maybe in a lottery. But the small batch is available pretty much every day in most liquor stores in Ohio.
Side note, if you guys are in Ohio, and you guys are not, I know, but the way Ohio works, it's for those listeners that are in Ohio, you have to listen to the video because I think by the time this will be posted on the audio, it'll be over. But Ohio's a state run, basically. So it's state mandated. All the liquor stores are through the state. And so it's all the same price. There's no fluctuation of price, which is good in some regards and not so good in other regards. But right now there is, during this week, I think it ends Saturday, that you can go on ohlq.com and you can register for the lottery, which then if you win, you have the ability to buy the bottle that you win. And I don't know, there's several bottles, but it's the big boys right now.
It's all the Buffalo Trace stuff.
It's all the big boy Buffalo Trace. So you've got some Eagle Rare 17, I know was Thomas Handy, and even all the Pappy Van Winkles. So the way that works, though, is crazy. If you win, say, the Pappy 23, you have the ability to then go to the liquor store that you chose. They'll have it held for you. You can buy that bottle for $299, which is the retail price. So
Ohio is so weird.
It is, but it's also a nice, in my opinion, almost fair way to do it.
You know what? I actually like it. I buy Weller just for my bar, Weller Green. And I found my one little honey hole when I go out to Cleveland at Giant Eagle. I go to their state store, buy it for $21.99?
Pretty much, yeah.
Or in Metro Detroit, those guys will jack that up to $80-$90 a bottle. So
yeah, I think last year when Steve and I were in Louisville, we saw Green Weller was 100, and Antique 107 was 150.
Yeah,
and then all the other Wellers, the high end stuff, was all $400, $500, $600 a bottle, and that's why it sits on a shelf collecting dust.
So there's benefit.
In Ohio, is a lot of that stuff. You got to wait in line for the truck, or on a Saturday go to a Giant Eagle and wait in line. But
I was in the
Cleveland.
Yeah, it was weird. I was in the Cleveland area, and it was the high-end Giant Eagle. I forgot what the name of the store was. Right next to my hotel outside of Cleveland. I just walked in because I had to buy bottles for an event that I was doing in Pittsburgh later on that week, and they had Weller Green, Red. It was limit 2 per customer, and I showed her my ID. She's like, "Oh, you're from Michigan." I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "You're not going to sell to me?" She's like, "No, you can only buy 2 bottles of each." So I bought 2 green, 2 red, and even the tequila that I bought, she could only sell me 1 of those, but that's what I actually wanted. But
so there's benefit there, obviously. What do you think of this? And you guys, you tell me what you think of the small batch as well. Tom, what do you think?
No, solid. It's a nice bourbon. So far I'm about, I poured 4 fingers, so I'm about 2 fingers in.
Fair.
And
have you had it before?
I have not had the small batch. I've had quite a few of the 1792s in the years doing the bourbon festival down in Bardstown,
Sure.
they would always
yes.
put a bottle of 1792 on our table. But I don't remember which ones they were half the time because I was about 38 bourbons in by the time I got to that bottle.
It
So
is a festival.
That's actually true. When you do Bourbon Fest down in Bardstown, they have the open drinking before the dinner starts, and they give you like a nice canvas bag. And Tom told me the first year we did it, he's like, listen, if you like the glasses, just drink it, or you can spill it out like a wine tasting. He's like, dude, but if you spill your bourbon out, I'm gonna punch you in the face. So
Poetic. Poetic, yeah.
you just drink it, and he's like, dude, you just make. Yeah, I'll do another one.
There you go. See, now you're learning. You're
So-
applying what you learned at the Burn
That's right.
Lounge. I like
Mercer. Yeah. So, but yeah, it was
He
fun
says
though. We just
Lazuka,
kept getting
it's not
back
front
in
of the tab,
lines. And,
Lazuka.
you know what? Blanton's was offering really good glasses, and Tom's like, dude, man, did you go see Makers? They're offering good glasses too. So they do a coat check for your bag. So you have like 20, 30 some glasses. That means you had that much before dinner.
yeah,
So
because I said we're not allowed to dump this shit out. You know what I mean? We're going there. If you can't drink it, don't take the glass. But I'd be like, oh, I like the Buffalo Trace one because it had like a nice buffalo engraved on the glass or whatever. I'm like, all right,
pros though.
Yeah.
I need a set of 4, so I gotta drink 4 of those. And by the time we even get into the gala, yeah,
I don't even remember the gala, to be honest with you, because then they had
people around you remember it, Nook.
Yeah, the nice part is
I was pretty good there. I was out of hand.
The beautiful part is the state police are there. I think the gala's around 1,500 people or 2,000 people.
Yeah,
Wow.
And they've got the police there, and they're just like, hey, you need a ride back to your hotel. You don't got to worry about driving.
Right?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
But we had that VIP like bus thing that picked us up and
Nice.
dropped us back off, and it was good times.
I like this, what we're drinking here. I think this is actually not surprisingly because it's 100 proof, but I mean, it's smooth. It's got a little bit of sweetness to it.
Yeah, I get a little bit of apple on a little bit of apple
Honey.
Yeah, and then kind of some mint on the finish, mint and oak on the finish. Yeah. It's not like an overpowering type of flavor to it. It's a
nice sipper.
Yeah, and even the color on it, like the color is more of like that lighter honey type of color to it. It's not a dark like amber or caramel type color. Yeah. It's definitely a lighter color for that proof. But no, it actually is pretty smooth. I don't get much of a hug. It's just all up in the palate.
Correct. Yeah, and I will say, I don't know, like, Tom, you've got a bottle there. I know, Nook, you're at a bar, but 1792 bottles, they stand out on the shelf.
Yeah.
I think they're very, they're different. They're unique. I think they're pretty high class looking. They got that gold topper on it. Mm-hmm. Just a very elegant shape to it, rounded edges, everything like that. It's kind of a more narrow bottle from the side. And I will say, I've always thought that when you're looking through like the bourbon aisle, you're looking at a bar, this is going to stand out. And I think they did a wonderful job on the way that they packaged this, which you guys obviously with Asylum, I mean, it's all like sometimes on a shelf, it's all about the packaging just to get them to try it. You know what I mean? And you can package up a turd and they're not going to buy another one, but at least they're going to buy the first one. So if you've got a good product, it's going to catch an eye, which I think this 1792 definitely does.
Well, and they came out with this because, and it's kind of ironic, they came out with this because they wanted to compete with Woodford and Knob Creek offerings at that time. They were considering those
that
like
pissed off Woodford.
Yeah, they were considering them premiums, and they came up with this to try and compete with those. Yeah. And then Brown Forman sues them because having wood in the
bottle now it's coming together. Now it's coming together a little bit.
Do you know why it's called 1792?
I don't know.
That was the year Kentucky joined the Union.
There we go. I did not know that. All right, Tom. We're going to go to, I think, where are we at on the time here? Yeah, about that. This is the time of the show that we actually do some ratings.
Excellent.
we're gonna round out part one. Looks like Nook had to step away, so he might miss the ratings, but we can definitely do it without him. He's done them before. But, so
Has he?
We do 3 ratings, right? So 1 is on the whiskey. You can give, if you'd like, the 1792 small batch. 10 is the best, obviously, whatever your scale is, but 10 is the best on the 1792, and then on the Asylum, 13 Medulla Maduro, and then a rating out of 10 for the pairing. So if you want to start, you're welcome to do that, or if you want us to. Normally, I would have kicked it to Nook just to see what he'd say in front of you, but he, conveniently stepped away.
Yeah, is the bill coming or something?
I don't know. Or maybe, yeah, exactly. Maybe he took off. He's on camera, though.
Yeah, that's right. No, I'll start. The bourbon itself, I would give this a solid 8.
Yeah.
The small batch is, I didn't even check the proof. It's probably around 80 proof, I guess.
93.7.
Yeah, so it doesn't feel hot at all. It definitely got a nice sweetness to it. It gives you that kind of cinnamon sweet to it, and so I enjoy it. It's very good. So I would give this a solid 8. The cigar, I think I think it's just my everyday go-to cigar. So I would definitely give this an 8.5 to a 9 for me with my palate. I think when I look at the visual, how it smokes and the flavor, it really hits for me. So, I think this is right up there in one of my favorite things to smoke. And together, I think it's right there. I would say together, I probably wouldn't pair them together all the time with the Maduro. I would much rather smoke this. I think it would pair better with the natural, personally, just because I'm not getting the sweetness, and I don't like sweet on sweet. So, but I would say at least a 7 as a pairing. They still taste good together. Sure. But I think if I was smoking the natural, I would probably put it right up there where I rated them both, around an 8.5 or a 9 together.
I think it would pair better, yeah. I got you. I can see that. You can definitely see that. I was going to go to Nook, but now we got black screen down there, so.
Someone probably swiped his phone while he was in the bathroom. Oh, there he
is. Nook, can you hear us? No, we can't hear you.
He's choppy.
Nook, you may need to log back on now that you got back in. He's like, oh, God damn it.
We can't hear him, but we know what he's saying.
That was the complete Nook goddamn it look for sure.
Hold on. No, here we go.
We got you.
No, I had it on mute.
Well, that would explain things.
Yeah, that'll do it.
All right, so we're doing
I did sell a box of cigars on the way back from the bathroom.
All right, good. That's good news. This is the part, you know how this works. So it's 10 is the best. We do 3 ratings, 1 on the whiskey. You can do the 1792 small batch, 10 being the best out of the. Oh, now you're eating. Is it nachos?
No,
pretzel bites.
Pretzel bites.
Okay, you can rate those 2 out of 10 if you'd like. But the whiskey, the cigar, and then the pairing, if you would, 10 being the best. 3 different ratings. When you're done chewing, of course.
4 with the pretzel bite.
Finish the pretzel bite if you will.
You know what? I'm doing the same one Tom is. I've had 1792 before. The regular one I just really wasn't a fan of. I actually do like this one. A little bit more on the sweeter side. Okay. Even though it looks like limoncello. I don't know if this one looks different.
No,
Not really.
Same.
But anyways, the pretzel bites, their cheese is really good.
Nice. Dipping sauce.
I'll give. Those are pretty solid. I'll do this.
No, let's focus on the bourbon here, bro. You're all over the goddamn place.
Yeah, what's the rating on the bourbon?
Out of what?
10.
Okay. 7.
Okay.
6.
Pretzel bites.
The cheese is good. I'll give the cheese actually an 8.
Oh, now we're breaking it down to more ratings. I like it.
So we got 5 ratings.
And then cigars always a 10.
Cigars at 10. What if I took Tom off the screen here? What would you rate it?
You know what? Like Tom said before, this is actually in my rotation.
Sure.
My winter rotation is actually the Connecticut
Okay.
and this. So
Okay.
it's the two cigars I smoke all the time.
Got
Even
it.
though I have a pandemonium lit over here too. But,
What about the pairing with leave the pretzel bites out of it, but earlier how would you rate the cigar and the whiskey there?
actually, I think they pair really well. Like the sweetness of the cigar, the sweetness of this one, like when you told me earlier, like 17, this one, I was like, I've never been a fan of the regular one. I'll be honest. I'm like, it was one, somebody gifted me a bottle, then I re-gifted it back out to somebody else. Like my buddy Rob, that Tom knows, like, yeah, I'd give that to him.
Okay.
Like, so, but I'm actually surprised at this one. I like it.
So
Okay,
what's the pairing?
yeah, come on, Nook, spit it out, brother.
What's the
I
pairing
did.
rating?
Out of 10, pairs really well. I'll give it an 8 pairing rating.
All right, 8.
Ooh, that was painful.
Hector, who I think's with you
Little
there,
bit.
Tom. He says that cheese messed up your palate, player. You need a cleanser. All right, Nate, how about you?
So Steve and I are drinking the Bonded, which actually I didn't mention this. This only came out like 5 years ago, and they do it once a year in the fall.
Oh wow.
Yeah. There's no mash bill released, but based on some other stuff, it's probably a higher rye mash bill, so like that 15 to 25% rye.
Sure.
I give it an 8. I think it is a good bottle. Again, it's not available in Ohio outside of a lottery. But I think it's a solid bottle. Not as rich or doesn't quite have the depth of some other bonded whiskeys that I've had. This one's more, it's a bonded bourbon, but it drinks, I think, a little bit lighter than that. I think it drinks under 100 proof. It's smooth. It's got good flavor, just not an abundance or richness of flavor. But it's definitely enjoyable. So an 8 on that. The cigar, I'm an 8 as well. I really like this blend. I was really excited when the Maduro came out because I liked the original Corojo so much. I was excited when they came out with this Maduro. And I prefer this, as Tom said earlier about himself, I like the Toro of this the most. Like when the Tinderbox at Easton had the Toros in, that was one that I would get on a regular basis. I think right now they just have the 60s and 70s, so I don't quite smoke them as much. But when that Toro was in stock, I absolutely went all over that. So 8 on the cigar, and then I'm an 8 on the pairing. I think going cigar to this whiskey, get a little bit more sweetness on the front end of this. It brings out a little bit more of like the vanilla or caramel notes of the whiskey, but going whiskey to the cigar, it kind of mutes the flavor of the cigar a little bit.
Yeah.
It kind of hides what makes, what I enjoy about the cigar. It kind of hides that or overpowers it a little.
Okay. For me, the whiskey, Nook 1792 is not one that I typically gravitate towards. I've had it never really like wowed me typically in the past.
That was one of the bottles I brought on in the first year of the podcast was the regular small batch.
It's never really wowed me. The packaging wowed me more than the juice. This is the first time I've had the bottle at Bond. I actually really do like this. I'm going to give it an 8 as well. I think this is a solid sipper. It's not overpowering. It's pleasant. It's easy to drink. And at 100 proof, it does stand up to the cigar a bit, but I mean, it's a good thing that it stands up to the cigar. The cigar, this blend, Tom, from you, I am a fan, not just because Tom's on here. I am a fan of Asylum cigars. When this came out, I did like the Corojo. This one, when I smoked it, I enjoyed it more, and I think I explained that earlier because I do like that. Kind of a more of like that black coffee type of a flavor profile, which I do. I'm not saying it's overwhelming, so if you don't like coffee, I'm not saying don't try it, but that's what I really equate it to. So I'm going to give the cigar an 8.5, especially at that price point. I think it's a good everyday smoke. I mean, it's if a say a $10 cigar, $11 cigar is a 10, then you really are just striking gold at that point. But I just think for 8.5, it's a really good cigar. I mean, this is a good, well-constructed, the appearance, like I said, the way that you package this. I took off the band. I see it's a cigar ring who you use for the bands. The bands do complement that kind of a tannish brown tissue paper on it. It complements. I mean, it's a sexy looking cigar, especially for that price point. And when you smoke it, it smokes its weight for sure. So I think that 8.5 is a fair rating. And I just really enjoy it. Again, this is a good everyday. If it's in your palate, it's approachable, not only flavor wise, but also budget wise, which is always a tough thing to balance in this industry, in my opinion.
Are you a big fan of San Andreas Maduro?
Yeah, I have become more and more. I think, when I first started seeing San Andreas as a consumer on the market as a wrapper leaf, I think I'll say this, it has developed in the industry as being blended with better. As time has gone on, I think everyone has been able to blend with a San Andreas wrapper leaf more and more balanced as opposed to what I originally remember smoking with a San Andreas wrapper. So this coming out, like, the way you guys do it, other companies are doing things with San Andreas wrapper. It's a very common use for a Maduro as far as a wrapper leaf anymore. And I think it's come a long way in the industry. And I think you guys, again, blending with all the Corojo tobacco, to my knowledge, most people that were using a San Andreas when they first started doing it, it wasn't with Corojo tobacco from Honduras. I mean, that wasn't a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that you see the growth of that wrapper for me. The pairing, I'll give the pairing a 7.5. I think it's good. It's not anything special, but it's not bad either. So I'll give it a 7.5. I think they paired really well together to a point where I would do it again. But I think to Tom's point, I wouldn't necessarily seek this pairing out again. Like, oh man, we have Asylum, we got to drink some of that bottle and Bond, or vice versa. Hey, we're cracking a bottle of 1792 bottle and Bond. I got the perfect cigar for it. Asylum 13. Medulla Maduro. No, it's not fantastic, but it's a decent enough pairing that I think it stands up to each other. So
I'd actually be curious about the bottled and bond versus what Tom and I are drinking.
Yeah, that'd be good. We didn't have the other 1792. This is just something we had on the shelf waiting to do on a show. So having, wanting to focus more on the cigar tonight, we just said, this is a perfect night to do that bottle that we have.
Especially since there was only two of us here.
Sure.
And half a bottle.
Sure. But so the way this works, for those that are listening for the first time, we're going to do a quick intermission. We stay live on the feed here, but if you're listening to the audio when it's posted, make sure you click over to part 2 for part 2 of the podcast. But I do want to thank you, Tom Lazuka, Asylum Cigars, Nook. Thanks as always for being a part of the show and helping set this up, obviously, as well. So it's fantastic to have you guys on, and I think we've got you both for part 2. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, thank you for having us, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. Guys, happy Whiskey Wednesday. We will be back momentarily. Click over to part 2, and we will see you guys live here. We'll stay live, but we'll see you momentarily after the quick intermission.
Cheers. I also want to point out again that I'm wearing the Steve outfit today, and Steve is wearing the Asylum gear.
That's right, man.
I've got a CLE t-shirt on underneath.
Yeah, I went full-blown Steve right here with the cardigan.
Full-blown gray cardigan. I like it. I should have worn one, but I decided to sport your guys' apparel because you guys were kind enough to send it. And this is both Brian and I who got these sweatshirts, and I know you guys have heard this. It's super comfortable.
Yeah, they've got good weight to them, too. They're actually really comfortable, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a heavier weight right there, so don't. And then for the intermission, a quick story. Tom, you actually, the first time I saw this sweatshirt was on a customer of ours that met you, I want to say, on a golf course down in Florida.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
And somehow, you guys got to talking, and he found out, or you found out that, he smokes cigars, obviously, or whatever. And he had said something about, I'm from Columbus, Ohio, and I go to Tinderbox. And you're like, oh, you know the guys at Tinderbox. And however, you guys, I don't know if you became drinking buddies that weekend or whatever it was, but next thing you know, he said that you gave him a backpack that had a bunch of swag, including this sweatshirt and some cigars and everything else. And then he was just like, and now whenever he comes in, I'm not sure that wasn't your intention, but now when he comes in, what do you think he buys? He always buys. Yeah.
Well, no, the funny part is it's actually one of my fraternity brothers from Wayne State.
Okay.
I went to Wayne State in Detroit, and then he went to law school at Ohio State. And so every year, I think there's 12 or 14 of them. They're buddies that all graduated from Ohio State Law School. Come to Fort Lauderdale area and do like a 4-day golf tournament between each other. And they had texted me. He had texted me. He's like, "You in Miami?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he just, "Why don't you come meet us out for a drink?" And so I said, "How many guys you got?" So I just put a little care package with the backpack and hoodies and all that shit together for the guys and cigars, and met them out for drinks and dropped off a bunch of swag for the group,
Well, you would have thought he met Elvis that day, because he would not, he was so geeked out about it, and he told me about it. And the next time he was in, he's like, "Yeah, this is a sweatshirt he gave me. Isn't it awesome?" I'm like, "That is awesome. I'm jealous." And about a year later, Nook came through with, sporting one for us. So I appreciate that. But that was a
very
good
cool
story. It's so fun to see that, someone in the kind of the small world that is the cigar community, that, he meets you, and all of a sudden it's like just that he has that identity with Asylum Cigars because of this, that fraternity and knowing everyone and doing all that stuff. And then the fact that you were so generous and giving gifts like that, it's just, it was really cool.
Yeah, it's funny, man. It's just like last week I was in Miami, and another one of our fraternity brothers from Wayne State lives down in the, he lives up in the Boca area in West Palm area, and he's like, "Hey, when are you going to be in Florida again?" I'm like, "I'm down here." And he's like, "Dude, I was just thinking about you. That I was at poker night with my buddies down here, and they're like, handed me a Asylum to smoke. They're like, "Bro, you got to try this." So I'm like, "Hey, I know this fucking guy." You know what I mean? So, it's funny how, just the network of people throughout the years, whether it's through college or through the cigar industry. Yeah. And, you run into people all over the place now. So it's pretty cool to see the brand kind of grow to where it has.
Well, I appreciate you saying kind words about the shop as well, because that was another thing that he was actually impressed with. He's like, "Yeah, I told him I'd go to the Tinderbox in Columbus," and he's like, "Oh, Brian and Steve and the guys," and he's like, "Yeah, I do." And he was just blown away that, like, the owner of a cigar company knew the shop he went to. So just that part of it too. Just like he was like, I felt like I've been going to the right place after all this time. Like, that you guys are like these guys know you guys too. It was cool. It was really
cool. Man. And that's, listen, you guys have been great customers for many years, through Camacho, and
you've known Brian a long time.
Yeah. And, through, like I said, Nook mentioned my first 10 event, but my first 10 events were actually through Camacho. Oh, yeah. But I think the first one we did, I don't know what we did, the Triple Maduro or something. I think we did the first time we did the 10 event. But
you did a lot of events, I know, with Brian over the years.
Yeah. So, for sure. Yeah, for sure, man. You guys have always treated us well. And, it's our job to bring people in, try and get them to come in and buy cigars, whether it's ours or as long as they're buying cigars, it's even better when they're ours. But,
yes. That's right.
So absolutely. We got to convince Christian to come to the 10 event next year. He was committed before, and then
2020
COVID hit.
Yeah.
And the Aroa jet could not leave and fly to Columbus. So
we had to
I told Steve we'll work on that at the sales meeting.
Yeah.
In January.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say, I know, Nook, you and I spoke about it, is that, Tom, obviously we'd love to have both you guys there, but I know that's a rarity, and we've had you there, and Christian was going to come, and, we'd love to have both a CLE and Asylum tables there if you guys can both make it. So obviously you guys are on the list. So you guys.
Yeah. Tom, I pitched that last time. I'm like, dude, we could do like dueling tables or something like that. Or Tom is just going to come and then just heckle Christian in the crowd.
Yeah.
That was my hope of the whole thing. So,
well, I'm hoping that I can be there, but this year, because I have a special product launching nationwide with Deadwood Tobacco Company in Sturgis, and So we've got a new project, and he asked me to be there if I could be there to do a dinner around St. Patrick's Day. So
Yeah.
I might have to be there. So, but we'll get Christian. We'll get Christian committed for sure. And if he's not there, then I'll hook a flight and find my way there for Saturday morning if I have to.
Well, I know that Tom,
You know
I
what? Tom
appreciate
can
you
make it
last
happen.
year.
Yeah.
So just a side note before we get started in part 2, Tom went above and beyond last year to the Smoking Tent event where you guys had TAA the very like you basically flew. I think it was the next morning.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you,
Yeah,
he drove down from Michigan on Friday night, came in. We had a good night, and then Saturday he was at the event, and then he'd fly down to Dominican or Mexico or wherever.
It was Mexico.
I drove him to the airport at like 4 in the morning.
So
It was awesome.
we had a couple other guys say like, "Oh, I can't because TAA's that starts that weekend," and I'm like, "Well, I mean, Tom Lazuka
Tom's coming.
coming when he's flying out right after the event, but yeah, okay."
Yeah, what's your excuse again?
Yeah, they were probably all like, "Fuck Lazuka" in their head, like that.
That guy's everywhere.
Yeah,
But it's like it's been kind of cool though. The last few years,
plug in.
you could always
I gotta
count on like Tom and Eric are showing up no matter what.
Yeah,
So, that's why it was funny. Like if Tom doesn't have Deadwood and like Christian comes, like Tom could just heckle Christian. That would be awesome.
absolutely.
Yeah.
During the VIP session, Tom would keep raising his hand. Christian, why do you do this?
No, I'd have.
I don't get it.
Stage, I probably couldn't get a word in, so that's fine. I'm good with that.
Christian would be freezing his ass off, I bet.
Oh yeah, hopefully not. All right, you guys ready for part
Boys,
2?
I'm gonna run to the restroom real quick before
Yeah, go
part
ahead.
2, or I'll be right back.
No, that's Nate. That you say that. That's very funny. Do you remember the year of? Are we live again for the second session?
We're still live.
We have not.
All right.
Are you
We've not
gonna
gone
bring
off.
up the 10 event 2014?
No, I'm gonna bring up.
We're
Like
live,
when you
but
said
this won't be on the
when it was going to be
episode.
cold. Like we did our sales meeting. Remember the polar vortex?
Yeah, that was 2014.
Okay, so they flew a few of us out to Miami early, and then we ended up going to the Keys. So it was me, Tom, Michelle from Chicago.
Yep.
We all went down, slept on Christian's boat for a while, went crazy with a whole bunch of other cigar industry people. But anyways,
I think Michelle fell off the boat.
she almost knocked me off the boat.
Oh Jesus Christ!
But
That's
we had
the worst.
Lauren. We had Lawrence from Kobana was there. There was a lot of drinking and a lot of but whatever. So we get down to the house in the Keys, and it was cold down there. So we're playing beer pong outside by the pool. Christian rented us this beautiful house, and so we're playing beer pong. Tom and I are killing everybody, like undisputed champions. But I look over to the pool. Here's Christian,
Freezing.
like freezing, North Face on. Tom and I are there like in shorts, long sleeve tee,
Because you're from
or
the
just a
Midwest.
t-shirt, and
Blood is not the
dude,
same.
look at us. He's like, dude, you guys are fucked up. And I'm like, Christian, this is not. I said, listen, in the springtime, 40 hits with the sun, windows are all down. It's beautiful. He was like, you guys are messed up, man. So I always remember that sales meeting because it was just funny because that polar vortex hit them so hard.
Oh yeah.
And Tom and I are like, dude, this is springtime. This is our favorite weather right here.
Yeah.
That and fall. But
Yeah, because I remember 2014 when that polar vortex came through, that's when I was working for LFD, and I remember one day during that polar vortex, the warmest city
How you doing over there, man?
in my territory was
Doing
St.
well. What are you
Louis
smoking?
at 2
Yeah.
degrees. That was the warmest. But yeah, I'd go to like Churchill's or other places up in Michigan,
yeah.
and they're like, yeah, dude, I can't really order much right now because I'm only getting like 7 customers a day because it's so fucking cold. No one wants to leave the house.
Dude, that was crazy though because they told Tom and I, they're like, listen, we're gonna fly you out a little bit earlier, and yeah, that's when we just went down straight to Christian's boat, did it up, and yeah, and then Christian was freezing the whole time we were down in the Keys.
Makes sense. Like I said, that blood is thinner and thicker depending on where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Tom.
Tom can hear us right now.
I don't know. Tom, can you hear us?
I don't think he can. No, because he didn't put his headphones on.
We'll wait for him to come back on. We'll start part 2 here.
I'm going to clue him in on what we said because I know he didn't hear it.
Tom, are you ready? Can you hear us? No, he's muted.
Tom, you muted yourself.
He's
Put his headphones. No, Nook, that also reminds me of like 2010 when I went to Fort Myers for my honeymoon. Checked into our condo, and it was like 60 degrees, and I was wearing khakis and a polo, and the lady behind the desk is wearing a zipped up parka, a scarf, a wool hat, and she's making fun of me, thinking I'm going to get pneumonia. And I'm just looking at her, and she's like, let me guess, you're from Michigan? I was like, Ohio. And she goes, get your swimming trunks on and get in the pool.
Oh. Yeah, Tom, when you were...
He's still muted. Tom, you're muted. There you go.
Hey, so we were talking about cold and everything. I talked about the polar vortex sales meeting.
What's the back?
I got it back.
Go ahead. Nook.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm looking at him. I don't know what he's doing. You know what? Team Asylum always makes for great videos.
The tech department is
we should have done like they have MTV behind the music. Like it just popped back up on my Apple TV.
Yeah.
Again, like they did some more seasons. Like we should have filmed like behind the music of Bourbon and BS podcast.
Yeah.
Like all of us when I come over drinking Miller Lights, listening to the country music afterwards, and
oh my gosh,
all that other fun stuff.
I don't know if I want people to see that.
Well, also while we're waiting on Tom to get back on,
you know what, man, dude, I got a lot more stuff on me out there on the air. I don't care.
No,
I think that's always fun.
No, it's always a blast. Don't get me wrong. No, not at all.
So I'm going to grab our backup bottle since we killed what was left of this bottle in Bond. 1792
So what do you guys?
Distillery is not known for a whole lot of stuff outside of 1792, but one of the products that does come out of this distillery is actually one of my favorites.
Oh Jesus!
Very Old Barton.
It's a big bottle.
Yes, this is a $23 bottle. And it's a half-gallon bottle.
Oh, boy.
But yeah, it's coming out of the same distillery.
That reminds me of the 1.75 of Buffalo Trace I bought the other day, just to have it on my bar, just because.
Same distillery, same bottle.
It's right next to my Willet pot stilled 1.75.
That's a gorgeous bottle.
It's a huge bottle. The base on that thing.
You know what, dude? When I go down to Total Wine down in Louisville to do my visits, $84. Like,
yeah,
that's a great buy to have a showpiece on the bar, just because.
Yeah, will. All right, up. We've got him back on. Now we're looking at the nice pergola again.
Yeah, sorry, I'm using the bourbon as my phone holder, and so I had to pour myself a new one. So
totally understandable. Totally.
You know what? Wait, you have Laya out there with you. Laya could just hold your phone. That's what
he is your assistant, so make some use out of him.
But Tom, before you went off, like I was talking about the Polar Vortex sales meeting. Yeah. How we all got sent out and this and that, and then Christian, like, I brushed over the boat with Michelle was there because they were all asking, but then we went down and Christian sitting around the pool in a North Face jacket, like shivering. You and I were like, beer pong champions wearing T-shirts, and he's like, "Dude, you guys aren't cold?" We're like, "No, man, this feels awesome right now." Because we were talking about like being cold and everything like that. It was the perfect example of that.
That blood gets thin when you're those Latinas down there, you know.
That's what I was saying.
In that full-blown North Face, he's just on the edge of the pool, like shivering. You and I are walking around in shorts and T-shirts.
Yeah. Which one was that?
Let's
2014.
see. Yeah, 14.
But where'd we have the meeting at?
It was in the Keys.
Oh,
Tyler's first sales meeting.
yeah.
Remember at the boat? Stewart almost, because Nate heard about that story. He's like, "Did you get knocked off of Christian's boat?" I go, No. Michelle almost knocked me off of the boat. Remember Lawrence came?
Oh, yeah, when we were just hanging out on the boat down in Miami.
We went to Monty's. Did a
Yeah.
little bit of that action before
Little
everybody
mind
else came.
eraser action.
Pain relievers.
Yeah,
right.
pain relievers. That's right. Yeah.
Are you guys
Level
are you
3.
Guys, you guys ready for part 2 here?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 250, part 2, Beyond the BS. This is where we go a little bit different than a lot of the whiskey or the cigar podcasts, and this is where we talk a little bit more about life. But tonight we have Tom Lazuka still on from Asylum Cigars, also Nook Mercer from Asylum Cigars. Tom is the owner. Nook is the, I guess, what, Midwest, would you call it, more or less? Rep,
Midwest
regional manager. So
I am the OG rep.
The original rep, absolutely. So part 2, we talk about something like a life topic. Tonight was suggested from the community, the Bourbon and BS community page on Facebook. So guys, if you guys look for if you're a part of a lot of like bourbon pages or cigar pages, it's a bit of that, but also obviously a little bit more than that. And I can appreciate the fact that we're about 1,600 members strong, and that's fantastic. And this one actually came from someone that's listening tonight that you guys know very well, Jonathan Herring. And it's decisions. And the way he described it was, when we're faced with big life-changing decisions to make, what steps do we currently take, and what steps should we add to our process in order to make better decisions in the future? And I put in there, let's learn a bit more about Tom and how he got here while talking about life, of course. But, this is something that, Tom, with you being a part of the industry now, you said for, what was it, 19 years, 18 years?
21, 19 with Christian, 21 overall.
21 before that. With all
Calibri Tom.
But I think, this is something that, we can learn a lot about this, is that, Tom, you've had a hell of a road, obviously, in this industry, and I imagine before that. But I mean, with you in this industry, I kind of wanted to give you an opportunity, if you don't mind, to kind of talk to some of the listeners about kind of how you got into the industry. I know that you say you're 19 with Christian, but there was 2 years before that. But all I know from you, obviously, and I've hung out with you several times, is that you were with Camacho and Christian for a long time. And then once that company sold, then there was the time where it was formulating what you described in part 1, kind of as that initial trade show. Say, we're going to do Asylum and CLE, and we're going to try to get this back off the ground. All the while, obviously, they were doing the farming side of it, the tobacco side of it. But, I mean, I looked at this topic, and I'm like, this would be perfect if we have Tom for part 2, because this is huge. Because I know that you've had a lot of success in this industry. You've had a lot of success in life, like a lot of people have had in life. But this industry specific, and how it probably also impacts your personal life. But it's not easy for 20 plus years being in an industry like this, for many factors. And I imagine a lot of it's travel, a lot of it's going, all over the world. A lot of it is the time consumption of it. And obviously just gambling, not only as a cigar rep going into this industry, but also more recently starting a company and being that guy, being the guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's kind of crazy where it takes you. You know what I mean? Like I look back, started off, out of college. I started in the pizza business with a chain called Jets, and partnered in that. And we had 4 stores, and my ex-wife now was, listen, you're never home. We can't start a family. And, so I had to make a decision there, and I ended up selling out of the pizza side and kind of goofed off for a little while and trying to figure out what am I going to do with my life at this point. And started our family, started having kids, and have 2 boys now that are 18 and 20, and growing up with me in the cigar business, and to get into the business. It is a great industry, but it is very consuming of your time. Again, with the travel,
Sure.
especially working for a smaller company. I came into the business. Obviously, you guys know Michael Perales.
Yeah.
Michael's been a great friend of mine for many, many years. I knew him before the cigar business, and he's the one that kind of pushed me to kind of get in the business. He called me with the job with Colibri. So my first 2 years I got in, and I just did the Colibri lighters and accessories for the first 2 years in the state of Michigan.
Colibri, Tom, come on.
Yeah, and gave me an opportunity to meet. I focused on tobacconists and the cigar retailers, and got to meet quite a few of them. And through that time doing events, I met some of the guys at Camacho, a gentleman named Salim Hanano, and they said, hey, why don't you come work for us? We're hiring direct reps. It was right when Christian was kind of, he launched in 2000, and this was like 2003. And I had been with Colibri for about a year and a half, and they offered me a position, but it was like, it was like Minnesota, Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, Kentucky. I'm like, no, man, no
Big
thanks.
territory.
Yeah, I'm like, no, thank you. And a few months later, they called and said, listen, what about Michigan, Ohio, and Western Pennsylvania? I said, I'm in. So I went down, interviewed with Sal Fontana, the old man, and Christian, and got the job. And from that point on, in like late 2003, I started with Christian and Camacho, and and a few years later, he sold in 2008 to Davidoff, and I went with Davidoff and spent 4 years there. And during that time, Christian was like, listen, let's start a new company when the non-compete ends. I'm too young to retire. I want to work. I want to show my kids the work ethic and keep working towards something. And the funny story is, like, in my last couple weeks there, I had Jim Young, who was the president in North America for Davidoff, came and worked with me, and he's like, listen, I see you in a bigger role. I want to see, we're going to give you Canada, and we're going to, I see you really being the face of the brand for us with Camacho. And Jim was very good to me, and I remember Christian was calling, on Friday after that week working with him, and I wasn't answering because I had a lot to think about. I'm sitting there going, okay, I
Here's
got
a decision.
You were screening his calls.
yeah, I wasn't answering him because I'm like, all right, they offered me, a pretty nice pay raise. This is a good deal, good health insurance, 401k, company vehicle, and
Tough to pass up.
yeah, and so I had to think about it for a day or day and a half or whatever. And Sunday I called Christian back, and I remember I'm like, listen, bro, they offered me a lot. And then he started in with me. And his actual words were like, listen, man, if you want to run with the big dogs, you got to get off the porch. And then I think the next thing he said to me was, listen, pull your tampon out and let's do this. You know what I mean?
That's it's aggressive.
Yeah. And I said, all right, I'm in, man. And so, that Monday I called Davidoff and said, listen, I got to take a chance on myself and to do this. And, I was very fortunate, man. I had a great mentor with Christian for many years, and his
Sure.
father, Sal Fontana, and built really good relationships throughout the years. And obviously I couldn't have done it without Christian. And it was just a good situation to go in. The family owned the farms, and, we had our own factories, and we built a new factory when we started this. So there's a lot of advantages that I had coming into this, instead of doing it on my own. And so I think the partnership worked really, really well with me and Christian. But at the end of the day, you got to believe in yourself. I mean, it's it could be a lot easier having the comfort and whatever of a larger company. But instead, I decided to take a large pay cut and crappy health insurance and no car allowance and battle through for those first few years until we really, found
Crappy
ourselves.
health insurance is, to say the least, my friend.
Yeah, to start
Jesus.
building and and here we are 10 and a half years later and doing kind of amazing when me and Christian, we like to sit back and look and say, listen, man, it was pretty crazy. We did it. We got ourselves back in a great position and built a really nice company. And, like I said, we've got great salespeople. Nook, even Hector here in Texas has done a fantastic job. And we've got a great team around the country. So we're very fortunate.
That's where we are now, but I want to go back to that time. Obviously, we don't have to really highlight the whole Jets Pizza and how that affected everything. But I mean, obviously jump back into it.
Wait, Steve,
Yes,
real
sir.
quick. Just a fun fact, a little side note, because I was living in downtown Grand Rapids for the last 5 years.
Yes.
I moved back to Metro Detroit. So we're going, we did the event at Halloween event at Tinderbox Dublin. We're driving back to Metro Detroit. I'm like, Tom, I want to show you my my new apartment. We're pulling into my new apartment. Tom goes, no shit. That's my original Jets Pizza right there. I live right behind Tom's Jets Pizza.
No kidding.
Yep.
It's
Which-
a small world.
that is a small world.
after all.
But going,
I just
like
thought
that-
I'd just throw that in there just as a side note.
So I think it's actually that story kind of feeds into this, Tom, with that, obviously those are like those decisions, right? You made a decision. I mean, I can appreciate it's not always easy even doing that, but I can appreciate the fact that you chose family, that you had a successful thing. I don't know. I know a lot of people will deal with that. The fact that Nook brings that up. I mean, now I have a Jets Pizza that's, a mile and a half away from me.
Yeah.
Which 20 some years ago, Jets Pizza, I don't think even was in Ohio.
No, they were only
knowledge.
stores in Michigan.
So obviously, whatever path you may have taken, I think that's kind of where I think this topic can go is that, if you would have at that point, you're like, no, I can make this work. I'm going to stick with Jets Pizza. I've got 4 locations already that I'm partnered in, and I really believe in this business. And next thing you know, fast forward now 20 years later, you could have locations and been a franchise owner, however it works, in Ohio and have, 20, 30 locations. No one knows, but I think that's, you say that you chose, you kind of say, at the end of the day type thing. But I mean, I think for what I want to know is jumping back into Calibri.
Yeah.
And then being with Davidoff, right? Like that's a decision that a lot of people, they struggle with. That's a big decision. Like you're employed, say you're either you're happy, you're not happy, whatever the situation. I think it's different for everyone, but there's an opportunity there that either you are just afraid to take that leap, or you're just like, no, I'm going to stick with where I'm at because it's comfortable. I think that's something that when you kind of gave us like the quick kind of the quick history of your career in this, but I think if you don't mind, I want to go back to that because I think this is really relevant to a lot of people. Is that you had this opportunity with Christian, who you had a friendship, you had a close professional side of the relationship as well, but I would guess that it wasn't the fact that you didn't want to tell him no that really made you make that leap. So like, what were the steps? What is that scenario, if you can recall that? I mean, if you don't mind sharing, is that how do you go from all those cushy things that's like, it's not like you were in a dead-end job. You were getting ready to be offered a shit ton of stuff that everyone really strives for, is that comfort in a job where it's like, I'm going to be taken care of. And you chose the other way where like, I believe in this and I believe in myself. I like how you said that. But walk us through that if you don't mind. Like, how does that work?
Well, I think a few things really played a role in it for me, right? And I think, I never finished college. I had like 92 credit hours, and I had the opportunity to get into the Jets business. And So I think I've been very entrepreneurial through my life, right? Like
Sounds
I've
like it.
always wanted to work for myself, or in that type of environment. And so with the pizza places, it was just something I knew nothing about. I literally went in to a store with Eugene and John Jett, the guys who started the franchise, and said, listen, we don't even know if you can run a store, but let's throw you in, let's see how you do, and then we'll go from there. And I took over a store that was doing $7,000 a week and turned it into $13,000 to $15,000 store a week within 6 months. And
Wow.
So they're like, yeah, okay, you can do that. Right. So let's,
Was that Livonia?
And so then we turned around and went up to, buying an area, developed an agreement with a couple other partners, and developing some other areas of Michigan. And then it just got to the point. I literally was working 120 hours a week.
Yeah.
I would have to train all the staff, build the store out, get the staff trained, stay there for 6 months. The next 3 months, look for a new location. And the next 3 months, train the people in that location and get it built out, start training people.
Wow.
And then start the process, because we actually had a 10-store agreement. So I had to open a store every year. Every 12 months, I had to open a new store. So it was just like impossible, right? Like to have a family and do that.
That's
so
a tough pace.
Yeah.
Tom, was your first one Livonia?
No.
Was that the turnaround store?
No, the Livonia was our third one.
Okay.
So
I used to order pizza from. That's just the weird thing. I used to order pizza from Tom's location before I even met Tom. And
Well, you helped him grow it. I appreciate that.
But that's crazy though. Like when you talk about all of this, like I met Christian first. I met Tom later on when he did Colibri, but inadvertently before I met Christian, I was buying pizza from Tom.
Yeah.
I mean, small world again.
Yeah, exactly.
It kind of makes sense a little bit, because for some of our listeners who don't know, Nook used to own a cigar shop in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, but then, I started in the cigar stores back in 97, 98. So I remember when Christian was on the road, and then Tom would sell his Colibri lighters. And, well, actually, you did Fago, though, too, right?
Yeah, I had a little stint at
Fago. And I used to order Fago through Gus down at the New Center building.
And I sold it to Gus.
Yep. And Tom sold us awesome Movado clocks that were still in my store when we sold our store before I worked for Tom in this venture.
Sounds like one of the people on the screen is a better salesman than the other.
You know what? But that's Steve. The next time Tom, when he's actually in the garage, he can tell you about that great sale that he did for the Movado clocks and what he had to do with my old boss / partner.
I can't
to
wait.
Get that deal with Movado clocks.
I can't wait. We'll have to have that for the next time that we're on. We'll have a whole whole section on how to do sales.
But that's
we'll do that in the Q&A section of the next 10 of it.
Right. You know what? So, that will actually be in the garage.
Hey, Nook, we got to get back on track here.
Let's get back on track. So, there you are.
Tom,
right?
You've never been on this with me before. I am all over the place, brother.
I got you, Nook. I got you. But, I mean, obviously transitioning out of the pizza places because, obviously I wanted to struggle
with. I mean, honestly, again, I don't want to really bring up, because you said
it wasn't.
But it's like that's something you struggle with, right? You don't know what's the right move here. You're trying to provide.
Yeah, because I didn't know what I was going to do, right? Like I literally left that in unemployed,
which is also is not a good space to be in to start a family as unemployed, right? I mean,
Unless your significant other's doing really well.
Well, sure. But it's like now you get to see me all the time because I'm not working or bringing any income.
Yeah, that was the funny part, right? Is like first I'm never home. And then, and obviously it made a few bucks, obviously selling them. So I really just screwed around for 6 months and went hunting and fishing a lot. And then, the wife was like, "Get a job, you loser. You're home too much," you know. And jokingly, she didn't actually say it that way, but in a nicer way.
You read between the lines.
Yeah, you know, so again, I went to work for Fago for a little bit, being a salesman for them, and then obviously Perales got me the initial interview with Calibri and got into that, and that was really a transition job to get into the cigar side of it.
Was that the goal?
Yeah.
Were you a cigar smoker back then?
I was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So my best friend that I grew up with had worked for Perales, and then he had been with Fuente. He's been with Fuente for over 20 years now.
And sold shoes.
Yeah, and so we
Fuente Mark
transitioned. Obviously the goal was to get into the cigar end, and it worked out being with Christian, and we're the same. I'm actually a little older than he is. I know I don't look it. I look way younger than Christian, but
100%.
But we just formed a really good friendship right from the beginning. I mean, we started having kids at the same time. I think all our kids are like a year apart.
No kidding. Okay.
His oldest son's 21. Then I had one. My son's 20. Then he had one that's 19. I have one that's 18, and then he had one that's 17. And then I said, "I'm done. I'm not competing here. I'm done." And but we really formed a good friendship, and he took me under his wing, and so we were able to go, right away, be like, "Hey, I'm going down to Honduras to work on some blends. You want to come with me?" So I really got thrown into it in a really positive way, and got
sounds
to
like it.
Learn a lot, and so the experience. So when he sold to Davidoff, it was kind of like one of those things. You're kind of like, all right, I don't function well in corporate America. Yeah. I'm happy for Christian. You know what I mean? And,
Did you transition? So when you say you worked for Davidoff, were you part of the sale? Like, you basically went with it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You could, obviously you had a choice. You could be like, nah, I'm not really interested in this, but you're like, no, this is what I do now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And, it ran separate the first 2 years, and Christian stayed on. And then in late, I want to say 2010 is when they combined the companies, and they shortened up our territories and made us sell all the brands, right? So originally the first 2 years it was just Camacho for us, and then they added Cusano, and then in 2010 I sold Davidoff and Avo and Griffin and Cusano and everything in a smaller territory. And then when the opportunity came, when it really came down to it, and Christian's like, let's do this, let's start a company. There obviously it was like, okay, I'm in an established place, but I also didn't work well in the corporate environment.
How so? What do you mean by that?
Well, in a sense that, at Camacho, and even with this company, we listen to our salespeople. We include them in as much as we can. And so they're a big part of new projects and different things. And everything was like that at Camacho. We'd go down, and Christian would be like, all right, he'd invite like 4 of us down to the boat. We'd go out fishing and spend a weekend out in Biscayne Bay, just sleeping on the boat, bullshitting. And we called them bitch sessions, and just what's the problems? Where are we doing bad in this? And,
sure.
When you get into the Davidoff side, they had, and it doesn't mean it was a bad thing. It was just something that worked very differently. And so you had brand managers for everything. You had a lot of layers of management. And it was just like, listen, we don't take your advice. We tell you what to do type of mentality, and it was like, so they didn't really take input from the salespeople the same way. It was more like, this is your job. You go do it. We'll handle the rest of it, right? So they really took a lot of that inclusion away, which I didn't work well in, and it wasn't kind of my style. So
you felt like you had less of a voice in what you were involved in.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they're hiring brand managers that have way less experience in the business and knowledge than me, and they're telling me how I should be selling cigars and those things. So there's a real battle, right? And I get they're trying to do their job, but they wouldn't like come and say, what do you think about this idea and how should we do this? What would work best? They would just give it to you, and then when it failed, they would blame you. You know what I mean? Because it just wasn't operated properly. So I think that played a big role in leaving, you know. And for myself, um, people change jobs, right? You know, in a
Some
lot of
people do, yeah.
businesses.
These days, a lot of people change jobs almost too much.
And for me, you know, I'm very loyal. It's important to, you know, I built my reputation on the brand itself and Camacho and Corojo and what we were doing. So, you know, when we're looking to, you know, leave and go somewhere else, I always found it weird to have to start going around and say, no, this is the greatest thing ever now, right? Like, this is better tobacco. This is this. So, uh, for me, I've always, a big part of it was believing in the Aroa family, the tobacco that they grew. And so when Christian came to me and I had the opportunity, I mean, obviously for my family purposes, I had to really think about,
Sure.
you know, what's best for my family. But at the end of the day, I had to be who I am, and that's more of an entrepreneur and wanting to develop and build something on my own in that opportunity. So it was, you know, it was a tough decision. I mean, you know, it wasn't that I hated Davidoff or anything like that. It
Sure.
was
No,
just
no, no.
an opportunity that not a lot of people get from my position. You know, from coming in as a salesperson, to have that opportunity to be a part of building something from zero uh, was a real challenge for me. You know, I want to challenge myself, just like every day. I want to challenge our salespeople to grow and keep building this company. So I needed that challenge, and I like. And a big part of it for me is the input, like being involved in blending, being involved in all the processes. And when that kind of goes away, it doesn't make it as fun, you know? So
Right.
for me, it was just uh, financially, I had to really think about, okay, how much of a pay cut can I eat here and what can I do? But, you know, the risk first reward, what's my long-term benefit compared to the long-term benefit at Davidoff and the short-term benefit or short-term negative sides. And when I weighed all those things and, you know, again, it was believing in myself, believing in our tobacco, believing in Christian and knowing the right things to do. And I think our relationship, coming from very different places, works very well because we think very differently. So I think, you know, the combination of, excuse me, the combination between the two of us has worked really well throughout the years.
Would you say, I mean, do you think that I mean, obviously we all hopefully grow from our past experiences. Do you think you walking away, obviously for family purposes, you walking away from the Jets Pizza and going, you know, stepping away from that and then trying to find a way, do you think that played an impact on how you handled the decision to walk away from Davidoff to dive full go into what you and Christian Aroa have done?
Yeah, I think so. I kind of felt, you know, I think at the end of the day, I felt like the uh, pizza business was kind of unfinished. I didn't get to really where I wanted to be with that. And being, you know, I could have been complacent. Again, very comfortable.
Yeah.
Davidoff was one of the best jobs in the business, financially, and, you know, it's a great company, good products, and things like that. But at the end of the day, you know, I just wanted more for myself. You
I
know, I
like it.
wanted the opportunity to build something. And again, you know, it's hard to do. So there's a lot of risk with that. It's kind of like jumping out of a plane without a parachute a little bit and seeing how you land.
Your odds are a little bit better depending on how
Yeah.
high the plane is, but I mean, it's still not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what?
Well-
But I want to say something really quick too. Like how long I've known Tom. Like, so I watched him grow from like Calibri to Camacho because they used to deal with Paralysis that gave
So
Tom
for those
the
that just
start
let me jump in here real
into
quick. For those that don't know
yeah.
who Paralysis is, Mike Paralysis is a broker in the cigar industry and has
From
been
Allen Park, Michigan, which Tom's parents live right behind where
so now you guys
Paralysis'
know even
office
more on the
are.
personal side. I was just saying we
You
keep
know what?
referring to
And
Paralysis.
you know what? And
No,
It may,
no,
it may or might
none of
not be there. The bra shop. Is the bra shop still there?
no.
But no. The thing is, what
Go
I
ahead.
wanted to bring up real quick because it was with like Tom talking and all that, and it's just weird that we inadvertently had known each other for so long. So Tom sold me all these products and this and that, and at the end, like when I went through my stuff at my store,
Sure.
like we're going through like full circle. Like I was dealing with my Davidoff rep, Mr. Burris.
Oh.
Shout out to Diamond Dan.
Dan
And
Burr is a
then,
great guy.
and then with Tom, and there was clashes when those things gelled together.
Yeah.
Not going to talk about the fight in Ann Arbor
No
back
specifics.
when that happened, but it was amazing and it was delightful.
Yeah.
But then when Tom took all that over, because everybody knew Tom in my store,
Mm-hmm.
and you're talking about like transitions and going to one thing to another. So the stuff happened with me, and then like Tom called me. He's like, "Dude, we got something for you. I got Christian on the line." He's like, "Dude,
Okay.
are you in or are you out?" I'm like, "Listen, I lost everything.
So
I'm in."
In a
So-
sense, it's a similar situation where you already
But-
had a cushy.
But I was
career.
going all in. But doing this new situation, and everybody in our company always thought that I had it easier because Tom and I are like, Tom's one of my best friends. But it was, all right, you inherited Tom's area. You're golden. Easiest job in the world. No, not so fast. I inherited that location because Tom sold Camacho so well. Now I'm out there trying to sell something like, dude, we already have Camacho. Tom already sold it to us.
Yeah, you got to do better than the numbers, right?
I'm like, all right, well, shit. Fine. Like, I quit 3 times.
You quit what?
3 times. This company.
Tom, is that right?
Oh yeah, listen, man. I'm
How many times have you fired Nook?
never.
Never.
I'm Nook's personal shrink. So every
talk him
so
off a
often
ledge.
I gotta
But-
invite him to the couch and sit him down.
No,
and
but-
talk him
but
off the
I'm-
ledge,
I'm competing against the best rep that I ever had, one of my best friends in the business. Like,
Sure.
my best friend, period. Like, I'm competing against that. Now I'm trying to sell against the stuff that he already sold people. That was tough, man. But then we flash forward once I got my legs into everything and I started doing stuff, and I go out and do events, and I'm like, dude, Tom, they want to see you. You're like, dude, man, they don't want to see me. They want to see you. At the end of the
They
day,
should
but
want you. That's that transition.
and that's what the full circle with me with all this stuff, like being with them since day one. Day one of our company was crazy.
Well, I mean, yeah, it sounds like if
We could do 8 shows based on our trip through Florida. So, but anyways, no, but it's just it's crazy how all this stuff is shaken out over the last like 20 years between Christian, Tom, and myself.
Well, I think that's what
It's
I think
weird,
that's what that people want to know about, and Nate, you can dive into this too. But I mean, going to you, Tom, first, we had a question. I'm supposed to say it's from an anonymous listener, but I got a text.
Maybe Brobile.
They're listening right
old
now.
RR is on here right now too.
Hang on. But I think this is something where I was asking, Tom, and Nook and Nate and everyone out there is something where is your opinion that trading opportunity for advancement and growth always better than security? Because I think you're saying like you chose the growth and opportunity, Tom, and obviously Nook, you're saying the same thing now. I mean, is that something? Because that is, again, I don't want to really beat this down, but this is a question from a listener that's on right now that says, do you think that you trade opportunity and advancement and growth? Is that always better than that security?
No, I think that is really based on personality, man.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good answer.
I think some people are built to have security. You know what I mean? And you know, there's a lot of times in my life where I feel like, man, I wish I could be in the golf leagues with my buddies or the bowling league or whatever it is, softball league, or, you know,
Yeah.
like you give up
Podcast
all
out of
that
your
stuff.
garage, whatever.
Yeah, you know, you exactly. You give up all that stuff. You know what I mean? Because you just can't be home. You know, this
Right.
business is you know, I'll be 40 plus weeks on the road this year. You
That's
know,
a lot.
so
I'm on the road until Sunday this week. I've been out here since Tuesday.
yeah. So you know,
Yeah.
you sacrifice a lot. I mean, even with my kids, there's, you know, again, the second time around, you know, I was traveling a lot. The wife was not happy, and I said I had to make a decision there to go my own way. You know what I mean? I mean, it probably created my divorce, and
Okay.
you know, I've always been close with my kids, and I have a great relationship with them, and we talk all the time, and they're grown up to be good young men, and I'm very proud of them. And but
Fantastic.
there's things you got to miss, right? And so, uh, but I look back at it and I think, okay, did I make the right choices? But I look at my kids today, and they really had to figure out a lot of things on their own. So they became very independent, young, and you know, I'd be home. I'm like, listen, let's make breakfast, but you're making it, you know, because I'm not home every week, every day to
Sure.
make you breakfast. So you got to
Sure.
figure out how to do things on your own. So, you know, I look at a lot of kids today that don't know how to do anything for themselves, and you know, my kids are.
That's very true.
At the end, are pretty self-reliant kids, man. They're good young adults, and so I think all of it played a part of it, and but you know, it also affected my marriage. You know, it still affects my relationships today. You know, with my fiance, and you know, being on the road a lot is hard. So you got to make sure you're including you know, her in as much as you can, and those things. And we get to travel a lot, and that's the good part. There's a lot of perks to it too, but you know, there's definitely some negative sides. But you know, for me, not everyone's built for the road, right? And getting back to the question, you know, is the security, would I pick it? You know, for my type of personality, yes. You know, I don't ever feel like I'm going to fail at anything. So I don't care where I'm at in my life. If I got to start over, I'm going to be successful at whatever I do. As I feel like I work hard, and I'm going to be successful. I'm never afraid of the failure. And if the failure,
What I like about the mix,
Absolutely.
Right, I'm listening here, you know, Tom, you mentioned this and you breezed over it, and so I managed a sales department at some point in my, you know, previous career, and there's a little bit of like this question, right? Is your opinion that trading an opportunity for advancement and growth always better than security? You breezed over the fact that you're also a very loyal person.
Yeah.
And I think that is that great equalizer that is missed by a lot of people. You're either loyal and you stick with that old school mentality. Nothing wrong with it. We've talked about on the show before in part 2, where it's like, you know, people that work the same job for 30 years, they put a roof over their head. They're, you know, they mow the grass, you know, those people are either successful or they also get, you know, divorced as well. I mean, it's you know, there's no right playbook here, right? But I've also known salespeople that they have a new job every 2 years.
Yeah,
I could answer that too. I'm loyal.
You are. No,
I could have.
What I'm
like,
saying is,
listen,
hang on 1 second.
no,
I'm just
no,
saying.
no,
Hang
no.
on 1 second, Nook. I'm just saying is that balance of wanting, like, you have that hunger to do what you wanted to do. You were committed to the Jets Pizza venture, and then you chose your family. Then you got back into the workforce, and you wanted to do something, and then you had a goal. You want to get in the cigar industry. You found a home, and then the outside factors changed around you. You know, Christian sold and all this stuff. And you're like, well, fuck. Now I'm still wanting to do this and all this. But that loyalty side of it is that you want to see things through, as opposed to a lot of salespeople or a lot of people that jump off and try to do new ventures. This whole thing of trading opportunity, you know, the opportunity and advancement and growth is so important to them that they throw the security side out the window, sometimes forgetting the fact that it's like, no, I need both. If I'm hitting the reset button every 2 to 3 years, there is no security. You know,
Well,
like, you save up a little bit, you start over again. And this is a problem, I think, for a lot of people, especially in this generation, that we're in right now, is that they want that quick fix. They want that quick satisfaction. They want the quick, the kids and even older people, they want to
next
start a
job
job and they're like, well, I want your job, or I want 2 jobs above
Yeah.
me. And it's like,
But
I
I'm
want to
going
do
to
that. I
say
want it
something real
now.
quick.
Go ahead. Nook.
Well, I'm going to say something real quick. The current generation is not working, period. But also,
aren't, yeah.
like once I got into this job now, and like a lot of my buddies are in the automotive industry, and I've got stuff thrown at me, and could I leave and do this and that? But it always comes back to, and some other cigar companies have come after me, but it's still like I've been here since day one.
Sure.
I don't care what I make. I have been here. I saw when we jumped in a car. I got dragged out to a hotel where somebody pretended to be a mute on day one. We had no samples. We maybe had a sales sheet or something like that. And Christian's cousin or Alexandra's cousin wouldn't talk to me, and they're trying to pretend this guy couldn't speak or stuff like that. But you know what?
You or the other
I
person?
didn't. You know what though? The thing
other
is,
person.
I didn't know what to wear on my first day of the job. Like I did this, we did that, but all I can say is I've turned down stuff that would give me more money, but it's the fact that I've been here since day one with 2 guys that I consider, dude, these guys are my brothers
Sure.
for life. I've known Christian forever. I've known Tom. Like, dude, Tom's had keys to my house. So it's just like, dude, I'm going to see where this thing brings us. And I'm never going to give it up. Like, I just want to keep seeing where it's going.
So
But,
I think that goes back
you
to
know,
the whole thing is like, if you have the blind security, right? If you just like, no, I just want to be employed, and say you are even unhappy, going back to that question. I mean, I've been there before in my previous careers that I wasn't necessarily happy with the day to day. I wasn't necessarily happy with where my life, this was just a path because of the way everything was laid out, and things were going well financially, career wise, and everything like that. But I got to that point where I'm like, yeah, now I'm working for the paycheck, because it's like, yeah, I'm not as happy every day going into it. And I'm not, I don't see myself 10 years. I can see myself in 10 years in this company and maybe even owning it at that point, because that was the path I was on. This is the previous career. And I'm like, that's just what I guess is expected. I just got to do it. That's blind security, right? It's like, oh, this is what I need to do. But if you lose your identity in that, it's like, again, there's not the balance of like loyalty versus where you're feeling like there's got to be something more. But if you only have the mentality of there's got to be something more, now you're missing out on your what you have already.
Yeah, and I think a big part, obviously, my relationship with Christian. Anytime, listen, when we started this company, I was going through my divorce.
Oh.
I was taking a pay cut, paying child support, going through difficult times in life, when we started the company, so I,
sleeping on my couch.
Yeah, and so it was, it's funny because I didn't get into the business ever thinking I would own a company. You know what I mean? Like when I started in this business,
Sure.
I went in as a sales rep, did the best I could, but never did I come in going, yeah, my goal here is to start my own brand and build something. It was really just, I did well. And then Christian really had belief in me and said, listen, let's do this together. You're ready. You can do it. And he's always been there, whether it's little things or financially or whatever. So he's been a great fallback for me in that sense too. So, I've never got into anything for money in my life. I've never worked, I enjoy nice things. I enjoy the freedom to travel and do the things I do, which this job has really provided for me. And the success that the company's had is financially has put me in a great place. But it's about the people. It's about helping our guys, whatever situation they're in, And that stuff doesn't happen in corporate America. You know, when someone needs help, you know, you can't go to your boss and say, "Hey, bro, I need $5,000, help me out." You know, like
Yeah.
whatever it is, we take care of our guys. You know what I mean? And so it's just a mentality for me that is giving back to Honduras, giving back to the people there, and the opportunity to do it. And so when we talk, you know, when you kind of put it all together now where it's at, yeah, I made the right decisions. But I never look back. I mean, you know, I look at things as it makes you who you are today. Whether it's failures and successes and all the things you do kind of put you who you are today. And I wouldn't change anything the way it's happened. You know, but, you know, to the real question, you know, the security and loyalty versus the growth, um, you know, I think, you know, some people want to climb the corporate ladder very quickly, like you said, and they bounce around. And kind of in today's world, if you sometimes you need to move in certain places to do that, and I get that. But for me, I was never a person that could just jump from company to company and go, yeah, this is the greatest thing now, or this is the greatest thing now. And you know, uh, 10 years into the business, you've been with 5 companies and they're all the greatest, right? And so for
Right.
me, you know, and I think the relationship with Christian has a lot to do with that. I mean, you know, it's been solid, and we've been able to really build something good. And I enjoyed the Camacho experience, and all of that has always kind of got me here today. So, but at the end of the day, I think it's just strictly personality, man. Some people need that security, and for myself, I feel I could start over at any point in my life and be successful again. You know,
The one thing I liked what you said, Tom, also going back again, I'm sorry to take little snippets out of what you're saying here as I'm listening to you, but it also was, you know, the corporate there again, no right answer, right? There's plenty of people that work that, and then there's plenty of people that they change jobs. I can appreciate all that. As long as it's for the right reasons, that's kind of where I'm at. And everyone's got the right reasons, but I look at what you're saying in your career is that the one thing that stuck out is that when you got to that corporate side of things, that and I mentioned it as I was saying in your path is that you were with Christian, and it kind of, you know, everything around you changed,
yeah,
and now you're in a different environment, and you started feeling like, yeah, no, I'm good at my job, but I have no impact on the direction of the company. So you have to feel like what's important to you. Like, am I now being dictated of how I need to do my job, even though what I did to get up to this point, you feel less appreciated. You have no impact on the direction of your everyday life, because we all say that is that you spend, especially you with what you were saying, is that you spend more waking hours working. So if you have if you feel like no one cares about what you have to say or what your impact is on the direction of what you're doing, that's when the security side of it. And I can appreciate, we've talked about on the podcast before, it's like I can appreciate the fact that you have responsibilities. You can't just up and quit a job if you have kids and you have to put food on the table, you have to pay for the mortgage, you have to do all that stuff. You have to do it in a smart way. You make an educated change, right? I can appreciate that. But I think that part is something that a lot of people struggle with, is that when you're in a situation where you're working a job that there is security, you're putting food on the table, the bills are paid, you're financially okay. I'm not saying getting rich or any of that stuff, but you're financially stable. But you hate going to work in the morning because of all those other reasons. Like, I'm not saying go out and start a cigar company. That's not easy. I'm not saying like, you know, like, oh, because we hear that all the time in the industry. It's like, yeah, I think I'm going to start my own cigar, you know, company. It's like, so
or open up your own shop,
or open up a shop, or, you know, like do all that
the
stuff.
best way to have
I hear
the
that
best way
way
to have
too much.
$5 million in the bank and have 1 million when you're done is start a cigar company.
Yeah. Great advice. But I think that's the big part of it. I think that's that teetering point. I think that goes a lot of, you know, I'm not trying to take it off course too much, but I think that's a lot of the other aspects of life as well, is that if you wake up in the morning, it's like everything's stable and secure, but, you know, it's like the company, the boss isn't listening to, you can't communicate, in your opinion, you're trying to communicate with your significant other or your friends or whatever it might be, is like, you're just not getting that fulfillment. You're not feeling heard, all that stuff. And I think that's a big part of the communication, because sometimes, especially in the corporate world, like you're saying, I think that's one of your strengths at CLE or the parent company and Asylum is that you are at a level where you and Christian have kept it at. That is one of, I assume, I don't know if you guys have it written down, but like, the mission statement, core values, and all that stuff. But it's like one of it is we're never going to get to that level where we are that corporate giant that will not listen to. Like, that's important to us. You can get bigger. You guys can get huge. You can be like in the industry. For those who aren't familiar with the cigar industry, you can get to General, Altadis, whatever. But that's a core value that you'll never take off of that.
Yeah, because
it's gotta be something that everyone's valuable. Like, this is a team effort, and I think that's something that with work, I think with relationships, in your own personal life, in any way, I think this is something that is so important, that the security of knowing that everything is not changing, everything's safe. It gets you into a quicksand level of danger where you just are like, well, if things around you change, now all of a sudden you don't know how to adapt. You don't know how to direct your decisions in this, and that's, I think, what we're talking about.
Well, to that question that the person
We
asked,
like our tactics.
To the question that was asked, the idea of job security, I personally think it's a myth. Like, because let's face it, just about any company can fire you for whatever reason or no reason.
Yeah.
Just because you work for a large company and you've been there for years doesn't mean they can't let you go. The company that I used to work for, when I got on board with that company, it was my first main job out of college. And it was one of the largest employers in Central Ohio. And someone else that I worked with at that time, they had been there for a few years, and everything was going great. And some things happened with the company where all of a sudden the company had to lay off a bunch of people. And that person, that friend of mine, was one of those people that, even though they had better experiences and everything on paper were better than some of the other people, they were one of those that got let go. Even though they thought everything was good, and they were working for a large, they ended up getting they were one of those that got let go. So the whole idea of job security shouldn't keep you held back from pursuing something you want to do, because you don't know how long they're going to keep you. You can choose to want to be there for a long time, but that doesn't mean they're going to choose to keep you for a long time. Sure. And I was with that company for several years, and then I was not happy doing what I was doing at that company. I didn't have there was no issues, morally about what I was doing with that in that research industry. I just didn't like, the people I was working for, and I was unhappy doing that job on a daily basis. Like Steve had briefly mentioned, I was one of those people that I woke up and I was like, oh my God, I got to go to work. It wasn't, I wasn't
talking about you. I'm talking about
I know you weren't. It wasn't, I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to go to that work. And so I had pursued an opportunity in the cigar industry, and I was actually driving up to Chicago for an interview in the cigar industry. And while I'm driving up 65 in Indiana, I actually get a phone call from my dad, and he's asking me what I was doing. I was like, oh, I'm driving up to Chicago for an interview. And he goes, is that for that cigar job? And I was like, yeah. He goes, well, I hope it goes well, but not too well. Because my dad was one of those guys from the older generation that when you got on with an employer, like especially a bigger employer, you stayed there until you retired.
Yeah.
So my dad started work for UPS when he was 18 years old, and he retired from UPS at 55.
Yeah.
And even though during that time, like, there were plenty of times he was unhappy, that's what put a roof over his head. That's what fed the family. That's what put kids through school. Like, that's why he kept doing it, because, he didn't have anything else to really fall back on. And then the interesting thing for me is when that cigar opportunity didn't work out the way I had wanted it to, I had to, start from ground zero. I got back into another large company that's here in Columbus, and I've been with them for now over 8 years. And because of that negative experience of the past, I'm much more cautious about jumping ship and pursuing other opportunities. So much like almost overcautious.
What do you have to say to that, Tom? Because that is something when you say you don't look back. I think everyone looks back, right? I mean, I'm not saying consume yourself with the past, but I'm saying again, build off of it. Again, knowing what you learned. That's the biggest thing I think is that you learn from some of those things that you've done in the past, whether it be business, personally, relationship wise. But it's you go into things where you're like, I'm going to keep one foot on, it's like, you ever seen those? My dad used to do this as he got older, right? He'd have he was 2-foot driver.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you ever ridden with someone that does that? Where it's we've gone from 0 to 25, and I'm pretty sure the brake lights have been on the entire time. I'm like, that's first of all, it's bad for the brakes, and it wears the car down, the brakes down. I think it's a good metaphor that it wears you down because you're literally going forward, but you're like, hang on, I'm not going to go too forward.
You're not fully committed.
Exactly. You're going to wear down your brakes. That wears you down mentally if you're constantly doing that.
Yeah, and listen, I think that, at the end of the day, I get to do something I love to do.
Sure.
So I don't feel like I work. Yeah, there's days where I'm like, fuck, I got a 5:30 a.m. flight, and I got to get up at 3 a.m. and that kind of stuff. But you get to where you're going, and you put your game face on, and even if you're having a bad day at home or whatever, in sales, you got to be positive, and so it just keeps you in the right place, but the mentality for me, just in general, is that 1 foot in, 1 foot out is never going to get you where you want to be, and so to me, you have to set goals. And sometimes it's very easy to lose track of those goals sometimes.
Sure.
Of what you think you can be, what you want to be, and even if you don't get to them, at least if you're working towards them, I think just mentally it makes you in a better place personally, right? And so if your goal is to work somewhere for 30 years and you're okay with that, raise your family, there's nothing wrong with those goals. There's nothing wrong with working at UPS for 35, 37 years and raising your family, because that's provided a good life for you. There's nothing wrong with that. I come from a blue collar family, and for me, there was something always more that I'm looking for, and whether it's experience in travel and those things, this job has really provided those opportunities for me to travel all over the world, and who I ever thought the craziest thing is, I was in Romania in September.
I
remember I walked Romania. Yeah, I was in Bucharest and Timisoara, and I was in a cigar shop in Bucharest, and a younger gentleman walks in. He buys some Asylums, and he walks by me, and I say, "Hey, good choice," and he turns around. And he's like, "I love your stuff, Mr. Lazuka," and I'm like,
"Shit, he knew."
Yeah, and I'm like, "Settle down here, buddy, and you can call me Tom. Don't make me feel like I'm so old." But it was just it's one of those crazy things. He's like, "Listen, I've seen every podcast. I love your cigars. I'm here. I'm buying a ticket for your dinner tomorrow night."
No kidding.
And it's just really cool to see that the impact has been worldwide, and to go to places, and people look up to what we do and enjoy the product that we give. So there's a lot of reward mentally to what we do, and again, the financial part is great in the success and the growth of the company. But at the end of the day, I'm getting to live a dream, man. I get to travel all over the world and do events and smoke cigars and drink bourbon. And, I laugh because, Tina, my fiance, just always laughs. And she's like, "What do you really do?" You know what I mean? It's like how,
you bring joy into people's lives.
Yeah, man.
It's like,
exactly.
like the Ronald McDonald of this day and age for adults. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying.
Yeah. But again, always kind of getting back to the core question. I really think it's just mentality, man. It's really how you believe in yourself and what you want out of life. And if, you know, raising a family and having a good 9-to-5 job is okay. Listen, man, that's a beautiful thing, man. That's what America is. But if you want a bigger opportunity, they exist. You just have to go out and work for them, And that's, when you sit back, I look, okay, I could have stayed at Davidoff, made a good salary and a nice living and a lot of comforts for the next 30 years till I retire. Or I could take a different risk and those financial rewards could be much greater at the end of the day. And for myself, again, it wasn't necessarily about financial reward. It was about building something from nothing, from growing a company from zero to where we are today, and having employees and employing people, and again, meeting people all over the world. It's really just an opportunity that I'm glad I took.
Yeah.
Well, speaking about the mentality, like how much do like negative experiences, failures, setbacks, how much do those negatives impact future decisions?
For myself, I don't really sit and dwell on negatives for me, man. I think that's a place I think we all fall into at some point in our lives, and you go through whatever, things you go through in your life, and it can kind of put you in a bad place and mentally. And so for myself, I always kind of look back at how you get through those things and how you power through them, and uh, you learn from them, right? Like you say, okay, this is something I did, and I think it's real easy to point fingers in life and say, well, this happened because of this or this or this, and I do. It's funny. I'm not a meditator. I don't really meditate. My lady loves to meditate. She tries to get me to do it, and I struggle with it sometimes. But I'm a very much a visualization person. So like for me, my getaway is to go hunting or something like that, and to be out in the woods. I really start visualizing how things will happen, and what do I do if this happens, and what do I do if this happens, and I think for myself, you really always have to kind of, and it's hard to do sometimes. I mean, I'm a human, right? Everybody's human, and you say, why is this happening? Because somebody else. You want to always kind of look somewhere else. But I think, successful people in life always look to themselves first and say, okay, where am I? Where's my impact in what's happened here? And to really take a look at your own personal self, reflecting on your what I'm doing, I think really helps me get through and say, okay, this is where I'm not being good today, or this is where I've kind of gotten off track, and so I think that self visualization, that kind of looking at yourself first, is really my way to say, okay, you're not succeeding here because you're not doing this. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, there are outside sources, but you're going to create your path. And so if you're always kind of, self-analyzing yourself, I think you can really find the spots where you can be better and grow.
Well, I'm one of the reason I asked that, because I'm one of those people that like negative experiences in my past, and I've realized this. I've come to acknowledge it and accept it. There are aspects of my past where I've failed at chances that I've taken, and because of that failure and how it impacted me and my ability to provide for my family, that has held me back from making decisions again to pursue similar opportunities.
Well, I think that's what we were talking about, right? Like,
Yeah.
So how do you how do you avoid that? How do you grow from that, Tom?
Yeah, and I think it's just you know, you have to put yourself back out there, right? Like you have to take risks in life to get reward. And the bigger the risk, sometimes the bigger the reward or the harder the fall, right? So you'd have to know as a person where your boundaries are, where the amount of risk you're willing to take, and not everyone's willing to do it. So that's just how you're built. But if you want to get to a different place, uh, being comfortable is not necessarily the place to be there. You know what I mean? Like you have to be, uh, comfortable being uncomfortable sometimes. And I think that's where the most growth happens in people's lives is when they put themselves in uncomfortable positions and they learn how to work out of that uncomfortable position, and it gets you over whatever it is that you're uncomfortable with. So, but if you're not putting yourself in those positions, you can't grow from them. So I think,
Tom,
you
if this venture, right? So if this venture, you're not looking back in the past, but if this venture didn't work out for you and Christian, would you have been ready to try something else?
100%.
A lot of things. You said tonight. I like it, but I also and Nook. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit of feedback. So while I'm talking, we'll get you on here, but I'm going to mute your mic just so I can. It's not. It's just a little bit of feedback. I know you're in a busy place. I don't be mad about it.
No, I'm not mad.
All right, so hang on. But if it hadn't worked out, say it does. Say it takes a turn.
Yeah.
At this point in your life, are you ready? Would you make another leap? Would you make another would you follow this and say, and I wish you obviously all the success, and I know you and Christian are doing some great things, and I love what you've said about you get that feeling of success mostly from meeting people like in where you were, and like they recognize you and you have an impact on their lives. You're paying employees, you're providing jobs, you're providing all this stuff. Say that takes another turn and say something changes outside of your control. Are you ready to do something? Going off of Nate's feedback here and his comments, I'm saying this is that have you gotten to the point where you are looking for just the security side of it? Like now at this point, you guys are doing well, and I'm not saying you're not taking risk where you're at, but I mean, would you be willing and ready to take another step in your career and say, all right, well, I got to start over again? Or would you take a cushy job? You're like, I'll work for another cigar company. What do you think you'd do?
Short term, I think I would start something again on my own. I really do. I just don't think I could function in any other atmosphere, any other platform at this point in my life, But yeah, I mean, obviously, if that situation happened, financially, I'd have to see where it put me, and so that would be impact on how I start something else again or something like that. But
that entrepreneurial spirit is still inside you.
Yeah, I would start another business. Whether it's in cigars or something else.
That's what I'm saying, right? So it's like, it's like that's a level of, sometimes you have your foot on the brake. Sometimes you have, like both feet driving the car. It's, and you could honestly, you hear about that all the time, right, Tom? This is a big success for you, obviously, the last several years, right? The last big chunk of your life. But you wouldn't let a failure impact what you do going forward.
No, man.
Because right, you're not like, I'm just gonna fail again.
Yeah, no. I truly believe I'll be successful in whatever I do, and if I'm not successful in something, then I'm going to try something else and try and learn from those things. And at the end of the day, for myself, I'm a pretty adaptable and resourceful person, and so
it shows.
And so I think for myself, I don't care about the Joneses. I don't care if I got to sell my cars and sell my home and do all those things to start over and rebuild something, I'll do it, because I don't really care if anyone thinks, oh, well, this guy went from driving a $100,000 truck and a nice cars and a nice home, and now he's living in an apartment and driving a shitty car. I don't really care about those things. The material things are nice to have. I enjoy some of the things that I've been able to get in my life, but at the end of the day, I don't live for those things, man. I live for experience, and so the satisfaction of building something and creating something is a way better experience than the material gains at the end of the day.
You want to see it through.
Yeah.
I remember Tom with the Volkswagen, and when he would roll up to my store, also the Volkswagen, when you backed into your own car with your truck with the hitch and put a little ding ding in the back of your own car.
Yeah,
remember that.
I
remember those
when
days.
You leave for the airport early in the morning.
I remember those.
It's not all highlights.
Yeah.
No, but the thing is, Steve.
Sometimes it's on SportsCenter, not top 10.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, but what I was saying, though, I remember those days. And that's when I'm out on the road, like, everybody knows Tom in my area. So which makes one of my area, like, one of the hardest. But Tom's always like, dude, you always have to, like, dude, you have to be the new rock star. But at the end of the day, dude, he did such a good job. And, like, having to compete against those Camacho numbers from back in the day, Tom could start tomorrow and be like, hey, Nook, I need you to sell this. Outdoorsman 2.0. And you know what? I'd go into a store and be like, hey, this is Tom Lazuka's. And they're going to buy it. That was the segue into my my comment.
No, I think it's great. I think
because he's a rock star. Like, everybody still asks, like, when I go back into my old stores, like, dude, how's Tom doing? Like, everybody still remembers Tom. So,
Tom, how do you respond to that?
No, man. I mean, I get it. It's funny, man, because when Nook started, his confidence level as a salesperson was low, let's say. And I remember
shaky.
Yeah, I remember the first. I don't. What the hell's?
I was a rock star and a cigar store owner, but not so much on the other side.
The very first trip we took with Nook, I remember. What the hell's the name of that movie with Jennifer Aniston and Paul Rudd? Nook.
Oh, it's Wanderlust.
Wanderlust. So, Christian, we're getting ready to go into accounts.
I'm so curious how that movie plays into this.
So,
have you seen it?
I have seen it, and I'm curious how this ties in. I'm
gonna put my dick in your vag.
When they're at that commune thing or whatever, and Paul Rudd kind of built up his courage,
like
right?
Commune.
Yeah, and he's looking into the mirror, right? And he's like, how do you like, I'm gonna put my dick in your vag thing, right? And so Nook had this like lack of
rating on this.
Yeah, sorry, boys. But
now go on.
But we kept telling Nook,
Steve,
we're like, all right,
wait, hold on, real quick, Tom.
Nook, hang on, Nook. Let him finish. He's responding to your comment. I want to hear this.
Yeah. So we're telling
saying
Nook
something about dick and vajaj. Yeah, go ahead.
But we're telling Nook, like, the confidence thing, right? He's in the mirror trying to build his confidence to make this approach. So every stop we went into, the first bunch of stops, me and Christian made the pitches or whatever. And then we'd be like, all right, Nook, you're making the pitch here. What are you going to do? What are you going to do, Nook? And he'd be like, I'm going to put my dick in your vag, right? I mean, it was kind of like building him up to get the confidence to go in there and do it. It was just a funny story from our beginnings. And
I got to ask, how did it go?
No, he struggled through in the beginning a little bit. No, don't get me wrong.
Just like everyone's first time. I understand. Go on. You can just equate it to everyone's first time. You think it's going to be so great.
It was quick and painless. you know. But
The thing
For
is,
some of us.
you can,
Yeah.
listen,
But at the
you can run a store and be very, very successful, Steve, on our end of, like your end of the business, and rock it out to the other end. But that's where we coined the phrase "you nooked it."
So I've known these guys for a long
There's
time.
a T-shirt.
I have not heard that phrase. You nooked it.
yeah, so that's our company term when you fuck a sale up.
No, I get it.
That
I
should be
get
the
it.
next CLE and Asylum T-shirt. You nooked it.
Yeah. So we, but it's funny to watch Nook. You know what I mean? He's been with us for over 10 years, and
Yeah.
you know, I used to laugh because we do an award at Camacho. We had this award called the Sal Fontana Award, and it was always about who best represented the mission of the company, right? And say not necessarily the best sales in the company, but the best kind of who followed the mission statement, And so when me and Christian first started this, the very first meeting we had, he switched the name of the award to the Tom Lazuka Award.
Oh yeah.
And it was emotional, right? Because I didn't expect it. He gave it to me, and he said, "Listen, this is for all your work and helping put this together." Blah blah blah. So every year I give that award out to somebody at our company. And for the first few years, Nook would be first in sales, and he wouldn't get the award, and he'd get pissed off at me, right? He'd be like, "Fuck you," and then and I made like this Stanley Cup looking trophy, and I'd make everybody drink out of it, right? So maybe not with COVID, we can't do it so much anymore. But
all right.
And Nook would be like, "I'm not drinking out of it till I win it," And I'm like, "You're missing the whole point. Nobody in the company gets this award without the team being a part of it. You know what I mean? Like nobody has individual success here. It is about the team. That's the whole idea of it." And Nook would get so pissed he wouldn't drink out of it until he won it, and he'd get all sensitive on me. And then I remember one day, and then he won the award, and I told him, I said, the difference between you today and where you were before is you were winning in sales, but you didn't quite understand what it took, and a lot of that was his own self-confidence. And understanding and believing in the brands completely and believing in himself, and so. So when Nook finally won the award, he finally drank out of it. But it was just funny that kind of the beginnings of Nook, because like I said, he wanted to quit and a number of times.
He said he quit 3 times.
Yeah. He tried. I never accepted it.
I'll talk to you in the morning. It's fine.
Yeah. Suck it up, Buttercup. Let's go.
Was it intentional not to give it to Nook those first few years?
No, absolutely not, man.
No?
It was Nook. Listen, Nook was selling, and but it wasn't. I wasn't like holding it from him just to say no. There was something as a salesperson that he was missing, and there was a confidence that he was missing to in a belief. And the funny part is, once I saw that change in him, he understood the outside sales part of it much better, and that's why I gave it to him. Like he grew as a person and a sales rep, and deserved it.
And that was like, dude, Tom, I fucking love that you said that, and because everybody at the old shop always wanted you, and then so like when I do an event in Pittsburgh for our Asylum lounge, and I'm like, dude, they want to see you. Like, dude, they don't want to see me anymore. They want to see you. He's like, now you have achieved the level that you reminded like me of, like at your shop.
Yeah.
You've officially achieved that level.
Well,
they don't want to see me. They want to see you.
And it's a level, and it's not a,
but
it was funny, like at Camacho, the owner can only be in so many places at one time. You know what I mean? Like we can't be everywhere at every time. So the rep has to be the representative, the face of the brand, and become the rock star in your store, And I would much rather have the spotlight when he's at Tinderbach Easton at your store at Tinderbox to be the spotlight instead of me, because he's there all the time. You know, it's great.
Absolutely.
Listen, I love coming back. I love visiting you guys and
I
catching
appreciate
up.
that. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you know, Nook is your guy. Nook is the expert on our brand, and so he's got to go out there and do that. And so, you know, when people want Nook, like that's good for our company. That's good for our business. And I would much rather have. I appreciate people wanting me there, and I get there when I
Yeah.
can. But you know, like I like the fact that Nook is the face of our company in that area. You know.
Well, I think that that's a big thing is like, in this industry and like when you're doing all these things and that is the big part of it is that, again, wherever you are in the level of the is it corporate, is it, smaller business, medium-sized business, whatever it might be, with Asylum or CLE where you guys are at with this company, the I think the stepping stone, the growth of it is that if you have someone like a Nook, right, that he is Asylum, he is CLE, when it's very actually like it's kind of contradictory because when Nook is Asylum and Nook is CLE, and they're like, hey, by the way, like, what does CLE stand for? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
the owner of the company, like Christian Aroa. Asylum, like, like how long have you like been working for that? Like, who owns that? It's like, oh, Tom Lazuka. You met him last year at the Smoking Ten event. You. I'd love to have him here, but that is the point where the identity of it all is that it's totally integrated. It's completely everyone that represents a company is Asylum. Everyone in the company is CLE. That's where it's like no matter who you touch that is giving you that cigar, that is the company, and I think that's something that you guys are doing really well at, and that is a big struggle with all this but I think that is that whole, again, working for the right people, being in the right relationship, is that it's not just the fact that like when Nook shows up, it's like where's Tom. It's not like when you show up to a cookout, you're like, oh, where's your significant other? Is she coming too, or is he coming too? And you're like, oh, well, they're busy. I'm here. It's like, oh, cool. And they just like literally take their drink and they like walk away from you. It's like, no, like, like we're like, I'm us. I'm the company. I'm the relationship. I'm that person. Like we are together. When you can accomplish that step where it's like, oh, I'm happy to see you because you are Asylum Cigars. I think that's a huge part of it. And also, I think going back to the earlier part of the conversation of where you don't feel appreciated is you walk in and if you have a Tom Lazuka, the owner of Asylum, and it's like they don't even want to see you. Like I don't want to buy from you. I don't want to I don't want to smoke your cigars unless Tom's giving it to me. It's like we're missing something here.
Yeah, exactly.
We are missing a huge piece.
It is. We built Asylum. You've never seen my face or Christian's face in an ad for Asylum. We don't build our company based off of myself or him. Obviously, CLE and Aroa, Christian's
his family names on it.
So
sure.
Obviously, with the CLE side, he's more of the face. But the reality is, it's not ego driven.
Right.
I would much rather. I don't need to be catered to. I don't need to be pampered. Like I would much rather have the success and the people want to see Nook. And listen, I'm flattered. I want to be there, and I travel nonstop because I want to fulfill customers' needs and to be at your stores and things like that. But at the end of the day, Nook's the guy who's there every month at your store, and he's the face of our brand. And our brand is about cigars, not me as a person. And so every day, it's nice to be recognized, but it's not an important part of my vision and goal for this company.
No, but people buy from people they like, and that's where Nook comes in, and also comes in where you are, Tom. Is that if they don't like you, they're not going to buy Asylum, no matter how hard Nook pushes that cigar, and that's the important part. That's the big picture there, right? Is that again, you go back to this topic of Decisions, is that I appreciate this conversation. The fact that, Tom, you were able to, you're willing to expose a lot of the story and the build up to where you are today. And when you give that, the beginning of the part two, you gave that kind of, it's not really an elevator speech, but it's like a little bit more than that, where it's like the fact you gave this whole like history, and it's like you can say at the end of the day, here we are. I love being here. It's like, it's always great to hear the success story of the fact that when in your mind, it's like, yeah, we went through all this and here we are. And it's like, people want to hear that. They want to hear like there's identity to it. People buy from people they like. There are a lot of people that buy Asylum cigars, not just because it's $660 or $770 or $990. It's, they might buy that, but then they learn about who's behind it. And also guys like Nook, they meet him and are like, I feel better that I enjoy this cigar because Nook or whoever it is or even the retailer, really represented the cigar well. And they talk about all this stuff. We went back to this in the intermission. We were talking about this story where a customer of ours at Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio, he was down in Florida on a golf trip, and all of a sudden, small circle, again, small world, all this stuff. Tom, you met him because of your fraternity, where you went to college, yada, yada, yada. And all of a sudden it's like, you knew the Tinderbox at Easton, you knew the people that worked there, you knew everything synced. And all of a sudden it's like, I've never smoked an Asylum cigar. I like you, Tom. I like those guys. I can't believe you guys know each other. Like, it's like, I feel almost like just not honored, but it's like, I feel really like fortunate to be able to like smoke these, and I know where they're coming from. And then if Nook walks in, it's like, yeah, I smoke Asylum cigars. That customer is going to say the same thing and say, so here's my story. I was down in Florida, yada, yada, all that stuff all over again. And he's like, great. Yeah. Here's a cigar. Thanks for supporting us. And it's like, oh my God, these are customers for life because you guys are good people.
Thank you.
And you have a passion for what you're doing. And the passion goes when you learn about like what you and Christian are doing down in Honduras and how you run the operation, how everything's done, and just everything is on such the up and up, and even beyond that it's so impactful, and no one knows how to get to that point. And I appreciate you sharing that this is how you got there.
I appreciate being on, and I enjoy talking about it, man. Like, I hope it can inspire somebody to try something new in their life, or take a risk, or hopefully not take a risk and come back and say, holy fuck, I listened to that Lazuka guy and I fucked me over, but
I'm broke, I lost all that stuff.
Yeah, no, but
all right, Nate, what are your closing remarks, Nate? This is where we do the closing remarks part 2, and we'll round it out.
So when it comes to decision making, I think it's easy to take a risk when things are going bad, because that's something I've been dealing with recently, professionally and career wise. When you're not happy doing what you're doing or where you're doing it, it's really easy to want to do something else,
so to take that step,
to take a chance.
Yeah, sure.
I think the big challenge comes when things are comfortable, when things are going well, and still having that mentality of challenging yourself, wanting to do something different, wanting to do something you love. Because there's a chance it could backfire, but there's also a chance that you could have great success at it. But the same thing happens if you just, keep doing what you're doing. We kind of talked about that a couple weeks ago when we talked about if it ain't broke, ... We left it open.
Sure.
Because sometimes, the old adage is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, but sometimes if you don't fix it, you may pass up opportunities to grow or challenge yourself or find something else that you really enjoy doing. And that's been one of the hardest things for me, is because I've had some failures in my professional career. When I get to a point where things are comfortable, not great, but comfortable, I have a harder time taking a risk, especially if it's in the same industry I failed at before. Even though I would love to do it, it's hard for me to take that risk because in the back of my mind, the past failure holds so much weight. And it's something that I've really worked on trying to let go or not let it have as much a hold on me as it has in the past.
Yeah. Well, a good example, I'll tell you, I can't remember. I believe it was Michael Jordan, and one of the things I was listening to him talk one day, and he was talking about why the best athletes are the best athletes. And the number one thing that he says is that they're able to forget about the last play faster than anybody else. Because whether it was a good play or a failure, they gave up a touchdown or they didn't do their job right, they didn't sit there and dwell on the failure. They move past it and they're focused on what's in front of them. So if you spend too much time focusing on what happened behind you, you can self-reflect, but if you got to focus on the future, because if you're too focused on the failure, you can't be successful moving forward.
Well, that kind of goes back to when Steve had that analogy of having a foot on each pedal, on the brake and the gas. Like if you were competing in, none of us, but if you were competing in the 100-meter sprint, it's very difficult to put in a good time if your head is constantly turned backwards looking at the starting line.
Yeah. Or the competition.
Because you're not focused on what's in front of you.
Sure.
I mean, listen, if Ohio State is thinking about the Michigan game, the last
Here
2
we
years,
go. Here we go.
The last 2 years, there's gonna be failure in the future. They got to look forward because they can't look back at the last 2 years.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
And you know what?
I held it out for almost 3 hours, boys, before I even
couldn't hold anymore.
You know what? You know what, man? And there's failure in the future too.
That's
we
true.
own this shit.
Yeah.
But Nate, I remember your first multi-vendor event in Michigan. When you were on the road for the first time. And Tom was there too. He's like, dude, who is this guy over there? I'm like, I don't know. I think he does LFD. Up at Timothy's Cigars.
Oh yeah, I love that place. I love that place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Timothy's is good people.
We'll leave that story alone, Nook.
Yeah, we will. Yes, we will.
That was my last week.
All right. So, all I got to say is, again, I appreciate Tom, you being a part of this. Nook, again, I know he's ordering another drink probably, but at Burn, he's in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, I appreciate you being a part of this.
Wait, hold on. Steve, real quick. I just got yelled at.
Yeah.
And they're like, I just want to let you know that we close at midnight and you need to be cleared out of here. I'm like, all right, man. Well,
another hour.
I'm gonna cash out here in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm good, man. It's like, dude, you have to be out of here. I'm like,
all right. Well, I'll round it out so we can close out.
No, man. I just think it's funny that the guy got aggressive with me.
It's 10:50, so weird. He's got an hour.
Yeah.
Well, no, man. It's outside. Well, North Shore.
Well, you're wrapping it up there. We're trying to wrap up the show here. You know what I'm saying?
Let me just wrap this up. I appreciate it, like all this stuff, and the whole thing with Desicions.
Tom, you've never been on a show with me. We go crazy.
Well, now you're gonna get kicked out of that place, so we don't want that. So all I'm gonna say is I think that this is something that I've learned a lot tonight. Tom, I appreciate you being open and being a part of part 2. Obviously, the first part, love learning about the Asylum 13 Medulla Maduro. I think this has been a great podcast. I really had a great time learning from you. And again, most importantly is that people that listen to podcasts that you're on, I hope they can hear some of this side of the story. And I think the part 2 where we go beyond the BS, that's a big part of it. It's like, yeah, you're smoking Asylum cigar, you want to buy from people you like. You want to enjoy why you like. You want to enjoy the cigar first and foremost, but learning more about where everyone comes from and why you're smoking that, why you're enjoying what you're enjoying, what you learn in life, all that stuff, everything building up to that point, the decisions you make in life. When you look up to someone, you're like, wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice to be in that situation? I look up to people like, oh, they have nice cars, they have nice house, they have so much money, they blah blah blah. It didn't come overnight.
Yeah.
There's a history there, and I appreciate you sharing. Not saying you drive a shit ton of like nice cars and you're multi-millionaire. I'm saying that you've gotten a point in your life, and that's why I asked that question. If that failed, what would you do?
Yeah.
And I think that you also implied that the person that you've been in business with for a while, with Christian, is that there's an inspiration that when you said that, he's like, I sold it off and I'm not ready to retire. I want to build something again.
Yeah.
It's doing these things. That's what gets people to those places. There's nothing wrong, like you said, of working the same job for 30 years to provide. And as long as you're happy doing it.
Yeah.
You got to know what is the worth of your day? What is the worth of what you're doing? Is it the security? I love that question we got on there. Is like, is it just the security? If you're miserable, figure it out so you're safe while you get out. But it's not just about what's the next best thing. It's literally about, am I doing the best thing? And that's the decision you need to make.
Well, and a lot falls on your values, your integrity, and the things you believe in. I mean, plain and simple. At the end of the day,
Absolutely.
You have to believe in yourself, the products, what you're doing, and there's people who want to climb corporate ladders and move along, and that's important to them. There's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
That works for them. So it's just finding what is good for you and working towards getting there,
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you being a part of it, Tom. I hope you come back. I hope you get in the garage here.
Yeah, for sure, man. I love being on the show, and I appreciate the second half a lot. Obviously we do a lot of podcasts and shows throughout the year and talk about cigars, but it was nice to talk about things that I haven't repeated 1,000 times.
Thankful. Thank you for saying that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Guys, cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. We will not be doing a podcast next week because it is the busy season in the retail side of things. So there will not be a podcast next Wednesday. We'll be back between Christmas and New Year's with Rob Wilson from Rocky Patel Cigars. You guys know him very well. Don't say ooh. Don't do that. No, but I appreciate it. I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, all you guys out there. Cheers from Bourbon and BS Podcast. Have a great week. Have a great holiday.
Happy holidays, guys.